By the end of this tutorial, you're going to see how you can host multiple WordPress websites on HestiaCP. HestiaCP will be installed on Ubuntu 22.04. So before we start, we are going to set up our Ubuntu server using this post, and the link for this is available. So make sure you follow everything on this post. And then once we're done with this, we're going to install HestiaCP. And after installing HestiaCP, you're going to see how you can set up DNS. And then after setting up DNS, you're going to see how you can install WordPress and so much more. So get started watching this. If you want to run multiple WordPress websites on any VPS or any cloud. In this tutorial, I will be using Vultr, and you can follow along with Vultr. If you come here, you can follow along with Vultr. Just click there and you can get started with your Vultr server, and we're going to set it up. Let's dive in. Let's see how we can host multiple WordPress websites using HestiaCP. Hi and welcome to this video. I'm going to do an Ubuntu 22.04 initial server setup, and I will be using Vultr as my cloud provider of choice. But you can follow along with any VPS provider of your choice. Once you log into your server, you can follow along with me without any problems. So the post that I'm going to follow, I've already written it, and I will provide the link in the description. But if I don't provide the link, you can just go to Google and search for Ubuntu 22.04 setup Bizanosa. Okay. So this is the post that we're going to use in this. We're going to do all this. We're going to deploy, log in, see how we can do all these things just to make sure that our Ubuntu 22.04 production server is safe for use. Ubuntu 22.04 setup Bizanosa, and you're going to see that initial setup, initial server setup post. Just click on that and it's going to bring you to this post, and this is the one we're going to use to set up our Ubuntu server. I've already tried all these steps on Debian 11 and they work with Debian 11 as well. So if you want to use Debian and not Ubuntu, you can follow along with this post. So I will come back to Vultr. First step, let us deploy our server. So I'll just click there on deploy, or you can click there as well to deploy a new server. So there are different types of servers here, but just in brief, optimized cloud, these are dedicated VPSs. So if you need dedicated VPSs, this is where you'd come. Then cloud compute, these are the normal VPSs that you can get on Vultr. And then there's cloud GPU. If you need instances that have graphic cards, you can use that. If you want dedicated servers, you can try that. But of course, we want to try cloud compute. And under cloud compute, we're going to choose AMD high performance. You can choose any one of these others, but I'm going to choose AMD high performance. And I will choose a location in America. I will choose Chicago. And then the operating system, of course, I want to use Ubuntu 22.04. Server size, I will leave it at $12. You can see it is $12, but the price is $14.40. That is because I think backup is selected. So if you don't want to enable backups, you can disable that, but you should probably just enable it for security purposes, just for you to know that you have a backup. I'm going to disable it. Of course, you want to enable IPv6. You want your server to be able to support IPv6, and then no public IPv. If you don't want a public IPv4 address, then you can select that there. I can see this is new. You can select that there. And then you can enable DDoS protection for $10 a month. You can enable Cloud Init. If you have certain Linux bash scripts that you want to run as soon as your server is set up, you can add that there. Once you click on it, you'll be able to add your bash script down here. Just paste in your script if you have a script. And then virtual private clouds. Let's say you want your servers, you're going to deploy multiple servers and you want them to talk to each other, you can enable virtual private clouds. This is just networking within the servers that you will deploy. If you're going to deploy multiple servers, you can enable that, but I don't need this feature, so I'm going to leave it unchecked. And then SSH, I'm not going to do anything with SSH here, because when I come here, you'll see that one of the things that I do here in step 4 will be Ubuntu SSH key login setup. We're going to see how we can log in with SSH key on Ubuntu, and we're going to see how we can set that up. I will not be dealing with that on Vultr. And then firewall groups. If you want to set up a firewall group, you can do that. So a firewall group is basically firewall rules that you set up that you can add to any server that you deploy. If you click there on manage, you'll be able to see the interface for that, and you can add a firewall rule, and then you can add certain rules in this group. And then you'd be able to attach any server inside of this rule. So you can see SSH is already added, and this is good for something like Kubernetes. Let's say you're installing Kubernetes on your own. You can come in here and allow the various ports that need to be allowed for Kubernetes and deny any access, any incoming traffic or outgoing traffic that you don't want to be allowed into or out of your server. So you can deal with that there. So the server host name, now this is important because if you're going to send mail from this server, you need to have a fully qualified domain name as a host name. A fully qualified domain name could be a subdomain or a full domain, provided that it is a name where when you add DNS records, it can be accessed. That is a fully qualified domain name. An example here, I could use something like cp3.bizanosa.com. That is going to change the server host name for our Ubuntu server. So make sure you add a fully qualified domain name. If you don't want to use a subdomain name, you can use a full domain name. All right, so I think that's pretty much everything that we need for our server. Location, server image, we've chosen Ubuntu. Server size, choose whichever server size you want to use. Everything else is as I want it. If you want multiple servers, you want to deploy multiple servers with the same settings, you can choose the number of servers that you want to deploy down here. For me, I want to deploy one server, and I'm just going to click on deploy now. As soon as the server has been deployed, I'm going to get an IP address and the root user plus the root user's password, and I'm going to use that to log into my server. So while that is happening, let's talk about how we can access our VPS, our server, via SSH. So to do that, whether you're on Windows or you're on a Mac, there is a way for you to do that. For me, I'm on Windows, so I'm going to use Git Bash, but you can still follow along with me whether you're on a Mac or you're on Linux. So let's go online, and we're going to look for, if you're on Windows, look for this, look for Git Bash. Git download. Install Git, download it, download 64-bit or 32-bit, and then install it. And once you install it, just come in here and then search for Git Bash. Open up Git Bash. Once you open up Git Bash, you can use it to log into your server. And if you're on a Mac or on Linux, just open up Terminal, and this will just be the same process. Whether you're on Windows, Mac or Linux, just use Terminal on a Mac, Terminal on Linux, and you can follow along with me. Let's go back to Vultr, and we want to see if our server is now ready. And you can see our server is ready. So I can just click on it to go deeper into the server. All the details for our server will be here. Everything for our server is here. The IPv6 address, IPv4 address, the username is root by default, and then password, you can copy that there or you can show it there. So let's come back to our server to log in. So I'm going to copy the IP address if I want to log into my server, and I'm going to come back to Git Bash. So on Git Bash, I'm just going to write SSH, and the user is root at the IP address, and on Git Bash, if you want to paste, you can do Shift Insert, or you can just right click and paste, or you can even go inside of the settings here, and there's somewhere where you can make it such that if you right click, you can paste SSH root, and then put in your IP address there, press enter. You will be asked for your password, and when they ask you for the password, so connection refused, let's restart our server. First of all, the connection has refused. If the connection refuses like that, let's just restart the server. So just give it time to start. Okay, now we can try to log in. So let me just press enter. And it's going to ask me if I want to add the key for this server onto my hosts file. So when I do this, it's going to add this to my hosts file, and it's going to treat this IP address as a trusted server on my computer. I'm going to type yes to accept that I want this to be added to my hosts file. Yes, so now this IP has been added to the list of my non-hosts file. So let's add in the password. I'm going to come back here and I will paste the password. Paste. So when you paste the password in, or when you type it in, you won't be able to see it. So just press enter. So connection was closed because I took too long. Let me clear the screen by doing Control L. Enter. And then I will paste the password. Press enter. And now I'm logged into my server as root. If I want to do anything else on my server, I can do it. Let me clear the screen again. I'll do Control L to clear the screen, and then I'm going to update my server. Since I'm the root user, I don't really need to use sudo. So I'm just going to do apt update, and I'm going to do apt upgrade as well. So this is going to update my server. So it tells me that all the packages are up to date. Okay. That's why normally if you just want to see if there are any updates, what you do is you just do sudo apt update. And this is going to tell you if you have any update. So all packages are up to date. So that's pretty much it for how to deploy Ubuntu and then log into your server. The next process, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come in here, and then I'm going to create a new user, and then I'm going to set up SSH key, create a new user and set up an SSH key authentication for our server. So let's get to that next. Whenever you install a Linux operating system, normally the root user is the default user, and everybody that knows about Linux knows that. That is why whenever you get a new server, a new VPS server, you need to create a new user that you can use to log into your server, and then you can disable the root user from logging into your server via SSH. Once the user is created, we're going to add the user to sudoers group. And then after that, we'll see how we can set up SSH key authentication for that user. But first, let's start by creating a new user. If you're not already on this post, I have created a short link for this post, and you can just go to bizanosa.com/ubuntu22. That's going to bring you to this post. You can come down and click wherever you want to go to. So I'm going to go to create a sudo user. First, I want to create a user. So to add a user on Linux, almost any Linux system, you just use the command add user and then the name of the user. And then after that, we're going to add this user to the user group, sudo group. User mod is just a way for you to modify a user. You can modify lots of different things about a user. In this case, we're modifying the group G to sudo for the user named new user. So first of all, let's just create the new user, and I want to create a new user. I'll just call the new user as it is here. So let me go back to git bash and let me clear the screen. Control L, paste. Let's call it the new user 3. So adding the user, give the user a new name, a new password. Give it a strong password because this is going to be your new administrator on your Linux machine. So make sure you give this user a strong password. Another password. Retype the password. So the password has been updated successfully, and then you can add more details about your user. I'm just going to press enter to skip all this. Is the information correct? Press enter. Now we have the new user. Now the next step is we're going to modify the new user. We want to add them to the sudo group, and the sudo group can perform root level tasks by using the command sudo. So you just add the keyword sudo before any command and they will be able to do it. So let's come down here and we're going to just copy this, paste. The new user was called the new user 3. So make sure you change it with the name of your user. Enter, and now this user should be in the sudo's group. So let's switch. Instead of switching to that new user, let's just try to log into the server using the new user that we've created. So I'm going to open a new instance of git bash, and we're going to try to log in with the new user. Let me come back here. I want to copy the IP address. And now we need to enter the password that we set for the new user. There we go. We are logged in as the new user. We can try to run sudo to see if we've been successfully added onto the sudo group. So I'm going to do Control L to clear the screen. So I can do something like sudo top. The first time you run sudo, you need to enter the password, and consequently, you won't have to run it. You won't have to add it again until your session expires. So after adding the password for my user, you can see that we can run sudo. I'm just going to do Control C to get out of this. And I can do Control L again to clear the screen. Let's try again. Let's try something else. Let's do sudo update to see if we can update the server. And since we can do that, it means that everything is working well, and we can see we don't have any packages to update. You've seen how you can create a new user in Ubuntu. You've seen how you can create a new user in Ubuntu and then add the user to the sudoers group. The next step, let us set up SSH key login for Ubuntu 22.04. And that's the next step. Let's get started on that. Let's set up public key authentication for our server. So with this, we're going to log in using the key pair. We're going to generate an SSH key, and we're going to add the public key onto the server, and then the private key is going to remain on our computer, and we're going to use that to log into our server. I'm on Windows, and therefore I'm going to be using git bash as I've been doing with the rest of this setup. If you're on a Mac or Linux, don't worry, you can follow along with me. The steps are the same. Let's get started. So if you want to get to this post, as I've told you, just go to bizanosa.com/ubuntu22. That's going to redirect you to this page, bizanosa.com/ubuntu22. Click on SSH key and we can get started. So install, if you don't have Git already installed, just install Git, open git bash. Now that we've confirmed that we can log in with the new user and the new user has the permissions for sudo, what you can do is we can close the root user screen. We don't need to do anything with the root user anymore. We just needed to log in and create the new user. So after this, we're going to disable the root user from logging in, and we're also going to disable password authentication so that people can only log in using the key that we set up. So since I'm on Windows, the first thing I want to do is I want to create a folder. Now, this method of creating SSH keys is very good. It's a very nice one because you'll find that you'll not override your keys. Okay, this is very important. Sometimes you have multiple servers, and if you do it the way most people show you online, you're going to override your keys and you'll lose access to those servers forever. I need to make a directory. If you're on Linux, making a directory is really not that difficult. You can just go to your git bash and then you can make a directory. Let's create a folder. So on Windows, just go to your home directory. So your home directory, that's where your home directory is. If you don't know how to get there, you can also get here by going to your C drive, users, and then your name. So it's the same. After installing git bash, you'll have a folder here called .ssh, and inside of this, you can set up the different SSH. You can create a folder where you can save your SSH keys. So I can just create a new one, or I can create one within another. So this is a really nice way because you can group different keys for different servers. In this case, tutorials. I will go inside of the tutorials folder and I want to create a new folder, and I will call this Ubuntu 2204. Like that. Once I do that, I want to copy the path. I want to copy this path. Copy. I will put it here. So let me have this because there are certain things I don't want to be editing anything on git bash because it will take a lot of time. This entire thing, whether you're on Windows or on a Mac, as long as you're using git bash on Windows, this entire path can be replaced by a tilde. So even on Mac or on Windows, on Linux, the tilde is just a path, a shortcut for your home directory. That will be our new path. This is where we are going to store the keys. So let's come back here and follow along. So we've created the folder where we are going to store the keys. You can see here, I stored it inside here, but you can store it inside of another folder like I've done. The way to generate the keys, you'll use SSH keygen. This is the command that is going to generate your keys. And then -t, this is going to be the specific type of your key. In this case, I'm creating an RSA key and I want it to be 4096 bytes. Okay, so 4096 is more secure than anything below it. So make sure if you're using an RSA key, make sure it is a 4096 bit key that you create. And then -f, this is going to be the folder directory, or rather the file name for where we're going to store it. Okay, so the only thing I need from this is that. So once I copy this, SSH keygen is going to generate our keys and it's going to store it inside of this directory that I've just created. So at this point, let me just paste it on a new line. I will paste it there. Let me increase the font size. So I'm going to do SSH keygen -f folder name. So remember that this is a folder name. I'm going to need to give the keys a name. So I'm going to call it, I can call it anything I want. Let me just call mine Ubu22 keys. This will be the name of my private key and the public key. Once we generate them, you'll see two keys with that name inside of this folder. Just remember, you're doing this on your local computer. So these keys will be generated and they will be stored on your local machine. So when you open git bash, just open git bash and ensure you're not logged in on your server. This you're doing on your local computer. If you're logged in to your server, you can just do exit. So if I'm logged in, I can just do exit. And that's going to log me out. And then you can continue. So I'm going to paste in that. Paste. SSH keygen, that, all that. Everything is as it should be. And then I'm going to press enter. And this is also important. You need to add a passphrase to your key. This way, if somebody comes to your computer and they take your key and they go and they try to log in with your key, then they will need the passphrase. So the passphrase is a second security for your key. Make sure you create one and make sure it is one that you can remember. As a matter of fact, just save it somewhere, write it somewhere, because don't trust your memory all the time. You will forget these keys. Make sure you write it down first and then that's when you type it on on your screen so that you won't forget it and you'll know it is the same key. So I've added a key to mine. Even though I'm not going to use this server for anything, I've added a key to mine. I've added a passphrase to my key. Permission failed. So let's see what happened. SSH tutorials Ubuntu 22 keys failed. Permission denied. Okay, so I can see the issue here is probably the asterisks, the slashes you see on Windows. On Windows, the slashes are like that. That was my mistake. But on Linux, you can see this is how they're supposed to be. So that is just a mistake that I have made due to me working on Windows. You just need to know that on Windows, this needs to be a /. This is a / because the bash, on bash, this is like escaping something. So it was just escaping a space. So that is a very stupid mistake, but you're probably going to make it. So the problem is just this. As soon as I copy this, we can try again. Copy, and then I will come back here, there, and then I will do Control L to clear the screen. So I will paste. Everything is okay. Enter. And then I will enter the passphrase once again. So just remember that when you're working with Git bash, it is like you're working on the Linux environment. So the Linux shell is now accessible to you, and the Linux shell does not recognize the /. The / on Linux is escaping, okay? So it's just like in programming, when you're escaping things, use the /. The /, this is the one for paths. This is the one for paths on Linux. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to come into the folder to show you that your keys are now generated. Now this is a public key. It has the .pub, and this is a private key. This is the one we're going to upload into the server. So whether you're on Linux or Mac or Windows, you'll find these keys now on your computer. If you go to the directory where you save them, inside of the .ssh, inside of the .ssh file folder, you're going to find them. But just remember, just note that your keys are there. You can find your keys there, okay? So I'm going to Control L to clear the screen, and then we can continue. The next step is to upload the keys onto your server. Okay, so if you do experience a problem whereby this doesn't work for you, you can actually add these keys manually onto your server. I don't know whether I have that here. When we get there, I'll look at it, but let's just do SSH copy ID. Now SSH copy ID is going to upload a key with this identity, and it uploads the public key, and then that will be the user and your IP address. So I'm just going to copy this entire thing because I'm going to replace it on Notepad. The path to our key, that is a path to our key, but just remember that when you're uploading to your server, you need to upload the public key. So that is a public key that is called .pub. Let me just copy my IP and save it here because I will use it a lot. Control V, and this, I will copy this, and let me just save it somewhere up there. So if I copy this, this will add our key. SSH copy ID will add the public key. Okay, so the key you're adding is a public key, and you're adding it for this user. So if you want to add the key for a different user, you'll need to do the same thing for the different user that you're adding the key to. So you can use the same key for multiple users. If you're paranoid, create different keys. So I will come back. Still, this is on the local computer. Make sure you're not logged into your server when you're doing this. So on my local PC, I'll just paste that in. Enter. It's going to ask me to log into my server. And once I log in successfully, it will add the key. So it's asking me for the password for this user. For this user, I'll enter the password. Now you can see number of keys added, 1. Now try logging into the machine. So we're going to see how to log in into our server. So if you do experience an error with SSH copy ID, probably you're on a Mac. Sometimes on a Mac, you won't be able to use SSH copy ID unless you install Homebrew. So if you install Homebrew and you install SSH copy ID, you can Google how to install that. But if you don't want to go through that process, what you can do is you can go to log into your server, and then on your server, make a directory called .ssh, and then create a file called sudo nano ssh keys. So this one line is going to create a folder called .ssh, and it's also going to create a file called authorized keys. Now, instead of this authorized keys, all you have to do is come into, and you can see I'm opening it with Nano. Make sure you open it with Nano, because I noticed that when you open it with Vim, Vim doesn't put everything in one line as it should. So what you'll do if you experience an error, just bear with me. If everything worked well for you, you'll come in here into .pub, and then you can open it with Visual Studio Code. And when you open this with Visual Studio Code, you can see it's just one line. Control A, Control, copy everything, and then go into your server. This is just an example that I'm doing, but on my local computer, I don't know the Nano is installed, and if it is not installed, too bad. But let me just create Nano. Let me just try Nano. You can see Nano is installed. It comes with Git bash. That is good news. Now, all you have to do is on the first line there, just paste in the key like that. It needs to be on one line, just like it is, and then you save. And to save on Nano, you'll do Control X and then Y to accept the changes. Okay, you can see permission denied, but anyway, you see what you need to do. This is what you need to do, okay? You just need to paste in the file and save it. If you message me and tell me that your SSH copy ID didn't work, this is what I'm going to tell you to do anyway. Once you copy the key and you save it successfully, make sure you come down and you change the permissions. And most importantly, after changing the permissions, make sure you also do this with the new user. And the reason for doing this is because if you don't do this, your user will not be able to log in with those keys. Let's go and see how we can log into our server. So just in brief, to log into your server, you need to SSH into your server using the user IP, user plus the IP address, and then with the identity of the key. So for this, you're going to use the private key. Where was it saved? You're going to add the link to your private key here. Copy. Come in here. Control V. Now SSH username IP. So I will replace that with this. Thank God we copied that. We copied it and saved it there. Paste. And then the identity of the key. Identity of the key, we're just going to copy it up to that point. We don't use the .pub. .pub is the public key, and we don't need to use the public key here. We're using the private key. And if you had changed, and when we get there, we'll see this, but if you change the port, you also need to specify the port. So maybe you are logging in with port. Maybe that's your new port. Once we change the port, you'll need to add the port as well. But in this case, we have not changed the port yet. We're going to see how we can change our SSH port. For now, let's just copy this so that we can log into our server. I will clear the screen. Control L. Paste. Enter. You see that it's asking me for the passphrase. So I'll just enter the passphrase that I set. There we go. You're now logged into your server. At this point, you can disable the root user from logging in via SSH. You can also disable password authentication. So I'm just going to do Control L to clear the screen so that we can do those last two steps. Disable root user from logging in. So we'll just, for this I'm using Vim. If you don't know how to use Vim, I do have a Vim tutorial here. There's also a video for it. You can watch the video to learn how to use Vim. So I will come here. I will open the SSH configuration file. So if I come back into my server where I'm logged into the server. Paste in that. I need to enter the password for my sudo user. We want to edit two things. We want to change permit root login to no. If I want to search for this, if you come here under Vim, you can see all this search. You can do / plus the string you want to search. And then you can use N, capital N, or small n. So capital N is basically just Shift N to navigate up and down, and then press I to edit. We will search for permit root login. I'm already on the normal mode, so you want to go into normal mode. I'll just press escape to ensure that I'm in normal mode. And then once you're in normal mode, after pressing escape, make sure that you press / and then I will paste in the string that I want to search. Paste, and you can see it has found permit root login. So if I press enter, it's going to search for that. So I can go up and down using N. So I'm just pressing the small n, and you'll see that it can find permit root login. Yes, so it has found the permit root login that was added by Vultr. You can see there was one which was up there and it was commented out. So they've added this to allow root login. I don't think there's any other. Let me press N again. So if I press N, it goes to the first one. So just press N until you get to permit root login, the one that we want. Okay, so you can see we have permit root login down here. If I want to go to the end, enter the $. When I press the $, it takes me to the last character of this. So I'll just delete it. So I'm just pressing delete. If I want to undo anything I've done, I'll just press U. And when I press U, it's going to undo those changes that I've made. So let me press I to go into insert mode. If you're not in insert mode, you won't be able to enter anything. So you can see down there, it tells me it's in insert mode. I can just delete normally using the delete keys, and then I'll enter NO for no. And now if I want to exit Vim, I can do Shift ZZ, that is going to save, or I can do Shift ZQ, and that's going to omit any changes that I've made, and it's just going to close the file without saving anything. Or you can also do the :WQ, but I'm used to Shift ZQ, Shift ZZ. So if I come back here, what else did we need to change on this file? We've already changed permit root login to no, so root user will not be able to log in. The next thing that we need to change before we end the video will be password authentication. Now, before I save, let me do escape. We'll press escape so that I can go back to normal mode because I want to search again. So to search, I'll just do / and then I will paste using Shift Insert, and I will press enter. And then I can go up, and if I press N, it's going to show me all the occurrences for password authentication. So there it is. It was just there. I don't know why I didn't notice it. So password authentication, you can see there's a password authentication here, which is yes, but this one is commented out. So let's just go and edit the one that was already edited down here. So this one was probably added because you didn't use your SSH keys. You did not set an SSH key when you're deploying your Ubuntu server. So I'm going to press I to go into insert mode. So if you are finding this a bit tedious, what you can do is you can just use nano. Wherever there is VI, use nano. This will be no. Password authentication, no. Permit root login, no. So I'm going to do Shift ZZ to save. Or if you want to save, you can also do :WQ. Okay, so this will be saving and quitting. If you don't want to save, you can do :Q!! So I want to do Shift ZZ to save and quit. Before I even do that, I need to go to escape mode. So I'm just going to press escape on my keyboard, and then I will do Shift ZZ to save and exit. All right, so the next thing, we need to reload SSH. You need to reload SSH. Password authentication has been saved. We need to do sudo service SSH restart to restart it. If you're Debian Ubuntu, use that. So now if we try to log in as root, we should experience an error. Let me come and copy. Let me just copy the whole thing because I'm going to use it at some point. So if I come here, let's paste that in. I want to try to log in with root, so I'll do SSH. Enter. So this will refuse. We cannot log in via SSH using the root user. Now let's try to log in with a password without telling the system the location of our key. SSH. Paste. So this will assume that we want to log in with the key. So normally if you don't disable password authentication, this will be able to, you'd be able to work with this even if you have an SSH key. But in this case, it won't work because we've disabled password authentication. So if I press enter, you can see permission denied. You cannot log in without the key. If you want to log in, you need to tell the system explicitly where your key is. So we're going to copy that. And we're going to try to log in. Enter the passphrase. And there you go, you're logged in. All right, that pretty much covers how to set up SSH key authentication on Ubuntu 22.04. I've tried this on Debian 11 and Debian 10 and it works. So you can follow along with Debian 10, Debian 11 and everything is going to work smoothly. What is the next step in our server setup? The next step is Ubuntu Firewall setup. So I'm just going to brush up on this because normally if you're going to install a control panel, setting up the firewall will probably be done by your control panel. If you're installing HestiaCP, then you can just leave that to HestiaCP. But it's important to install UFW because it will make your work very easy in setting up your firewall. Let's do that next. After setting up SSH key login for Ubuntu, let's move on to firewall. Let's see how we can set up Ubuntu 22.04 firewall. And we're going to use the uncomplicated firewall, which makes working with Ubuntu firewall much easier. To get to this page, just go to bizanosa.com/ubuntu22 to follow along with this setup. So we've done all the above. Right now we are here, firewall setup. We're just moving down the line and we're going to move on until we finish everything on that list. First of all, you can just do UFW status to see if UFW is set up on your server. Sudo UFW status. So you can see it is active and we have these rules added onto our server. So we don't need to install it. If you are on Debian 11, you probably need to install it first of all before you can continue. By default, before you even do anything on your server, before you install anything, you just want to deny all outgoing traffic and deny all incoming traffic. By default, we want to allow outgoing traffic. And then we also want to deny incoming traffic. Deny incoming traffic. I don't really have a website. What are people coming to do? So I'm going to deny the traffic. So if there's any specific port that you need to allow, you can allow it, or any specific service that you need to allow, you can allow it. So like for instance, after doing that, let's do status again to see what is available for us. UFW status. Okay, we can see this one is still there, but what happens if I allow it again? What's going to happen? SSH. By default, SSH port is port 22. Let me just Control L. I will clear the screen. Paste. Sudo UFW allow SSH. Enter. So rule added. It was already there. What do you mean it has been added? So you've added it twice. Okay. So you can see this is there. That's not a problem. Just let that be like that. You can see it allows it for V6. If you scroll up, you'll see that it was allowed. But now it has allowed it again. if you want to delete it, you can delete it. You can do sudo ufw status numbered, enter, and this is going to give your roles numbers. So maybe you want to delete number 1. So let's delete number 1, the first one. If you want to delete it, if you come back, all these are available here, so you won't get lost. You can allow a port, and then you can delete, like in our case. Let's come back and delete ufw delete number 1. You need to confirm it there. You can see it has been shown to you there, the rule. So you press Y to accept, or no to reject. So we can do numbered again, and you can see it is not available. So we also want to delete the one for v6, that is IPv6. So let's delete rule number 2. Allow TCP, nope, I don't want to delete that. So I want to delete rule number 2, enter. Proceed with operation Y. We're going to delete allow 22. Yes, delete that rule. Let me do Control L. Let me just go up. I'm sure I'm going to find it. There's no point in typing if I can find it. So we do have the rules that we've created. So we won't be locked out of our server. If you delete these two, you will be locked out of your server. We'll be allowing a port for our SSH once we change the port. Let me just, we'll do that when you get there. But you can allow a port like that. Maybe your Kubernetes, you're running Kubernetes, there are certain ports that need to be allowed. You can allow a port, you can allow a range of ports, certain HTTP non-protocols. You can allow them. You can allow HTTP and HTTPS. Of course, ours is enabled because we found when we ran status, it showed us the rules that we had. So we don't need to enable it. But if you run enable, you'll see what it will tell you. Firewall is active and enabled on startup. So if you do sudo status again, it will just show you the rules that you have. If you add any more rules, you'll see them here. If you're unable to access maybe traffic, you create a website, you're unable to access it, come in here and enable the 2 ports that I've shown you, the 2 services for HTTP and HTTPS. They will enable the default port for this. If you want to use a different port for anything, make sure you explicitly enable that port. We will allow a different port when we get to this part. We're going to change the port and then we're going to allow that port. Let's continue with that next step where we'll change the SSH port and then we're going to allow it on our firewall. If you're installing something like CyberPanel, HestiaCP, most of the times you'll find that these control panels will set up the firewall rules that you need because they have certain ports that they need to use. So in that case, you'll find that anything that you've set up in UFW, you'll find in your control panel, and you can use your control panel as well, especially HestiaCP. You can use that as well to add and remove or disable certain rules, certain ports just on the dashboard, on the HestiaCP dashboard. At the end of this, I'm going to install HestiaCP and you're going to see what I mean. So for now, let's continue with Ubuntu change SSH port. Let us change the Ubuntu 2204 SSH port. The default port is port 22. So the first thing I want to do is I want to allow this port in UFW. To allow the port in UFW, I'm just going to use this port as an example. So I'll copy that and I want to allow it on my firewall. First of all, I will do Control L to clear the screen and then I will do paste, enter. You need to be root, okay? I need to edit that, but I definitely need to add sudo, and it has added it. And if we do sudo UFW status, it's going to show us that our port has been added. So the next thing is for me to edit the SSH configuration file. And if you don't want to use Vim, you can always use Nano, okay? So in this case, let me just use nano 2. Copy. We want to change the SSH port. Paste. Enter. I will come down here, port 22. Delete, and then I will add in the new port, which is 7059. And I'm just going to save. Control X and then Y, enter. And I will do SSH. Not really SSH. I will do sudo service. Which service? SSH. What do you want to do with SSH? We want to restart SSH. Enter. There we go. So let's go and try to log in, and you're going to see you can't log in. Okay, so let me try to log in. And I'm going to log in like this without explicitly declaring the port that I want to use. Enter. So I'm logging in via the SSH keys that we set up. If you forgot how to set SSH key, just go back to that video or go back to that section on this post and you'll see how to set it up. We have to let the system know which port are we logging into. So I'm just going to do -p 7059. Enter the passphrase. So if anybody tries to log into your server using the default port, they're going to be surprised. They will never be able to access your server. And that's just one thing to help secure your server. Most people think that you get hacked by people sitting in front of computers. No, you're actually hacked by systems, robots, okay? People have bots, systems that scan IP addresses. They try to access using the default ports, default passwords, default usernames. So that's why you have to change your root user and you have to use SSH key. If you do that, your chances of being hacked just go down. It doesn't mean you're foolproof, but this will help you. You can see now if somebody tries to log in using the default port, they will be surprised. They will hit a wall. They will never go past that wall because they're unable to know your port. And this is good. So change the port. And you've seen how you can change your port. Let's see what's next. After we change the SSH ports, the next thing is create a swap file. Okay. We are now getting away from the security things. We are going to create a swap file. Everything that we've done so far, you can watch in any of the sections for the videos that we've done. In any of the different sections, you'll find all this. Right now, let's start creating a swap file. If you want to follow along, just go to bizanosa.com/Ubuntu22. And that's going to redirect you to this page. Just click there on swap file and we're going to see how you can create a swap file. The swap file is like a memory. My server comes with 2048 MB of RAM. So maybe your server is smaller than mine or bigger than mine. Either way, you still need to create a swap file so that when systems that are running on your VPS encounter lack of memory, what they'll do is they will move some items will be moved into the swap file, and you can use the swap file as memory. So that's what a swap file is used for. When your system runs out of memory, some items will be moved into the swap file, and then there will be some memory for the system that needs the RAM at the moment. Let's see how to create a swap file. We are going to start by creating a file. And it will be 2 GB. The file's name will be Ubuntu swap file. I'm just going to use this as it is, but you can change the name. You can even change the folder for where you're storing it. For me, I'm just going to store it in the root directory. So mine is 2 GB, but you can make yours more than 2 GB. So what is the rule? The rule usually is if you have memory that is 2 GB and below, create a swap file that is twice as much as your memory. So if you have 1 GB, create 2 GB. If you have like 2 GB, create 4 GB. If you have 4 GB and above, you can create half of it. Just create like 2 GB or half or similar. So if you have 4 GB, you can create 4 GB or 2 GB either. So for me, since I have 2 GB, I'm going to create mine for 4 GB. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to copy this. So what this does, it basically just creates a file and then allocates 2 GB to that file, and it will allocate the space from your SSD. So you're using NVMe SSD on Vultr. It's going to get the 2 GB from your disk space. I will need to change mine to 4 GB. There you go, the file has been created. We can go and look for it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to change the permission for the file. I'll do Control L. Just remember, even if you Control L, you can always scroll up to see all the commands which are still there. So I'm going to paste. I will enter. The permissions have been changed. I don't need to see and confirm if they've been changed. The third thing is to convert the swap file. Now, the next thing, I will just copy that. Paste, enter. So the swap for that has been turned on. Let's do free H. So you can see there was already 4 GB of swap that was created, and I've added another. So before you do this, you can always check the status just to see if there is any swap that is recognized by your system. Now that I've added it, let's just continue. I'm just going to add it into this file. Now, when you add it into the etc fs tab file, this file is a file that lets the system know all the memory locations. So that means that when you restart your system, it's going to know that there's a swap file that is my Ubuntu swap file. So let's go and open that file, and I'm going to edit it. And I'm editing it with Vim. So I'm going to do enter. And you can see there is already a swap file here called swap file swap defaults, right? So there's a swap file here. So we also need to add ours. We're just going to add the one we've created. So now you have 8 GB of swap memory. I mean, that's too much, but what the hell? You'll see what to do with all this swap memory. So I will come in here, and this is really nice. The fact that they're adding the swap file for you when you're deploying your server is a good thing, because some people never do this ever. I will do I to go into insert mode, and then I will enter. You can use nano. If you don't want to use Vim, just use nano, where it says sudo vi, use nano. Nano is much easier to use. So that is the location for our swap file. Swap defaults, everything will be 00. Then I'll just do Shift ZZ to save and exit. Oh, I need to go into escape mode. Escape mode first. Press on escape, and then I will do Shift ZZ, and that's going to save and close. And now, even if I restart the system, it's going to recognize our swap file. Sudo swap on. So if I do sudo swap on, I should have done this before you even start setting up your swap file. Make sure you do sudo swap on just to see if there's a swap file that's available. So you can see I have a swap file here that was created by Vultr, and I also have mine that I've created, right? Make sure you check if you already have a swap file by doing sudo swap on. So that is how to create a swap file on Ubuntu 22.04. What is the next process? The next step, we're going to change our server host name. So the next step, we're going to change the server host name. If you're on a different VPS, some VPSs like Contabo, even Hetzner, they usually don't change the host name for you when you're deploying the server. They don't give you that option. Hetzner to some extent, but there are some VPSs like Contabo, you'll get some weird name, host name. We're going to see how we can change the host name next. Let's continue. The next step, let's see how to change the server host name. If you're not already on this page, you can just go to bizanosa.com/Ubuntu22. So I'm going to change the server host name. Just click there. Hostname control, and then you can set the host name. Now this does a bunch of different things, but what you want to do with it is just to change the host name, and then you'll use the host name that you want to use there. So make sure you're using a fully qualified domain. A fully qualified domain could be a subdomain or a full domain. Like in this case, this is a sub domain. So let's say I want to change mine to that. I'll come back here and you can check your current host name on Ubuntu 22.04. Just type host name. I changed it to this. So let's see how we can change it to something else that is a fully qualified domain name. I can use this as my sample because I'm not using this server for anything, but make sure you're using a fully qualified domain name. So this part here, a fully qualified domain name is a domain that can be accessed. When you add DNS records, it can be accessed. So that's a fully qualified domain name. So instead of using example.com, let me just use bizanosa.com as an example. So I'll use this as an example. And when I do this, it's going to change my server host name. So right now the server host name has been changed. The next step is for you to add the host name onto your hosts file. Now the hosts file is this one here. It's found inside of etc hosts. Now this is like a DNS for your Linux server. Even Windows has a hosts file. This is something that just points an IP address to a host name. So that's what we want to do inside of this file. Let's go and see what we have inside of this file. So I'll open it with Nano. And you can see that it's already telling me that this system is configured to use something different to change my host name. So even if I change this, it's not going to persist. But let me just tell you how to change it here, because maybe your VPS is different from mine. Mine is Vultr, and with Vultr, the new VPSs, if you change the hosts file, it usually will not register. It will not register. You have to change it somewhere there. So let me just tell you how you can change it here if your VPS is not like mine, and if you change it here, it will persist. If you change it here and it will persist, this is how you can change it on your VPS. So you can just leave the first two as they are, and then down here you can see I already tinkered with this file a bit and I added this, my IP. So the next thing you want to add is your IP as well, and this is a host name. And this is just an alias for your host name. When you log in, that's what should be up there. The changes that I put here are not registering. And if I restart the server, any changes I make will just be overwritten. That's how you can change the hosts file. Just come in here, put your IP address, and if if this localhost IPs don't have it, then you need to add the localhost IP with the host name and then the alias, and then do the same for your IP address. Just copy your IP address, paste it there, and then that is your host name, that the one that you've changed to, and then that is the alias. So let me copy so I'll just do Control X. I want to copy this. Copy. So let me show you how you can add it here. If you're to add it here, just come all the way down with your cursor and add it. Shift insert to paste. I will paste that there. So do the same for this one. But for now, even if I save this and I restart, the changes will not persist. But maybe on your VPS, they will persist. It depends on your VPS configuration. So like in this one, if I do sudo reboot, so if I was to go back into that file, you'll see that my changes have been overwritten. My changes were removed. Okay, so you can see they tell you if you want to make these changes, you can make the changes in the template file. or you can remove this value inside here. So even if you remove this value here, it's not there. So we are just going to do this the hard way, and the best way I can think of is just to copy this and to make those changes inside of this file. And we're just going to add the changes that we need inside of this file, and when it starts, it's going to copy those from this template file. So I'm just going to do Control X to get out of here, and then I will do sudo, and I will open it with nano, and you can see this is where it's getting the templates for your hosts file. So even if you put it in here, it is not a problem. Now the only issue that I found was that sometimes even when you change this, it's not going to register in the hosts file. So I found that the easiest way for me to deal with this was just to put the manual copy. So the easiest thing was just for me to put the manual host name and the fully qualified domain in there, instead of using the placeholders, instead of using the templates. You can just put this. So what I mean is, if we come back into the server and you scroll down here where it says fully qualified domain name and host name, you can just remove this. Shift insert to paste inside of Git bash. And then for this one as well, I'll just remove all this. So put your IP address down here so that your server can know that your hostname is mapped to your IP address. So I'm going to do shift insert again. This will work with Vultr and a bunch of VPS providers that follow the same method. If yours is different, maybe the virtualization environment is different, then it may not work like this. I'm going to save, Control X, Y, enter. And let me just confirm if this is going to change it. If it doesn't change it, let's come back here. It's not going to change it yet until we reboot. But if it doesn't change it, we need to go inside of this file and change something from false to true. Control X. Let me reboot. Give it some time to start back up. So you just do Control L to clear the screen. So let's go back into that file. So let me just go into the file and see what the issue is. So you can see the problem is I used example and my hostname is that. So the issue is it was unable to resolve, and that's because that's not my hostname. My hostname is this. You remember I changed it. So if you're following along, you know exactly what the issue is, and I don't really have to explain this. So I'm just going to copy, and I will take it back into that file, the file that I was working with, back into the templates file. So let's save that, Control X, and let's reboot. So you can see the error has gone away, and you can see your hostname has been saved as it should be. If you want the changes to persist, you can change them in the template directly. Now, if they don't change, you can also go into this file, copy, If you're unable to actually change the hostname itself, and that is by using the hostname ctl command, you can go into this file. Mine is already changed to true. So if yours is not changing the hostname itself, even after you reboot, the hostname is not changing because you're unable to use the hostname set update command, then come here and change this to true. Mine is already changed to true. So this should help you change your server hostname. So the next step in this setup is to set time zone. The next thing is to set time zone for your server. And that's very easy. You're just going to do that. If you don't have this, install it. Sudo apt install that. If you're following along on Debian 11, you may need to install that. And then after that, we're going to go into setting up automatic update for Debian 11, and that will be the last thing that we need to do for our server in this Ubuntu 22.04 initial server setup. The next step, of course, you want your server to have the same time zone as you, where you are. Change your server time zone to that. And on Ubuntu and Debian, you can use tzdata to change that. This makes your work very easy. All you have to do is copy that and then choose your location. So come to this page, bizanosa.com/ubuntu22, and copy that. If tzdata is not installed, you can install it. On Debian, maybe it's not installed, just install it. And then paste, enter, and choose your continent. For me, I'm in Africa. So I'll choose Africa, enter. And then Nairobi. Just press N to go to your city. Press a letter for your city. For me, I'll press N, and that will take me back to Nairobi. I'll press N, and that should bring me to Nairobi. And then I'll press Tab to go to OK. Tab, and then enter. If I look at time, I'm in date, enter, and it's going to give you your time zone. If you change it, enter, and then you do date again, it's going to change the time zone. All right, that's how to change the time zone on Ubuntu 22.04 server. The next thing, we're going to set up automatic updates on Ubuntu 22.04. And then after that, what remains? After that, we can install HestiaCP. So the next step, we're going to configure automatic updates on Ubuntu 22.04. So if you try to install anything on your new Vultr server and you get this error, let's come back here and we're going to do install sudo apt install tzdata, and you get this. Let's just try to run sudo dpkg, copy, paste, run that. Let's just try to install it again. And it's going to tell you that the package already exists. So when you get this error, and I'm using a Vultr server, just run sudo dpkg configure-a. That should fix it. So when you get this error, just run what it's telling you to run there, and the issue will be fixed. We are back, and the next thing we want to do is set up automatic updates on Ubuntu 22.04. If you're not already on this post, just go to bizanosa.com/ubuntu22, and then you can go to step 11, set up automatic updates. So let's get started with this. I'm going to log into my Vultr server. I'm already logged in. This is where we stopped. This is the last thing we did. So let me just do Control X to get out of this file. Control L. So just go to this post and then come to step 11. Let's just make sure that we don't have any updates. Okay, we don't have any updates. Control L to clear the screen, and then I will install an unattended upgrades package. Now this is the one that will help us to automatically update our Ubuntu server or Debian server. You can follow along with the Debian server as well. I'm going to paste that in there. We want to install this package. It's already installed on Debian, probably not, but on Ubuntu it's already installed. And then we need to enable automatic updates. So what this will do, it will enable automatic updates. Let's enable automatic updates. So this is just going to configure it with low priority, and then it will enable unattended upgrades. This is important because if you don't do this, there are certain files that you will not generate. Once you do this, it's going to generate certain files that will be edited later on, that can be edited later on if you so need to. This will turn on the automatic upgrade, dpkg started error. Okay, so this is a problem with my website, but don't worry. The issue is this priority. This has double hyphens. These are double hyphens. They're being merged into one, which shouldn't be the case. So when you get there, make sure you put 2 hyphens for priority. Enter. And that's going to ask you if you want to enable this. You can read that. If you want to automatically download and install stable updates, yes, press enter. That will enable the updates. So just remember, when you get here, these are 2 hyphens. On Debian, make sure you do that because there's a package that you'll try to install, but will not be there. And I also added that there for you if you're following along on Debian. And then the next thing, we need to confirm update notifier. Update notifier common. This will enable you to reboot. If you need the system to automatically reboot, you need this package. So let's see if it is still available on Ubuntu. Okay, on Ubuntu, it's already installed. On Debian, you're probably going to miss it, but they're going to give you another name that you can install. Just install the other one that they give you. The next step is to configure what you need updated. So this is a file that we need to go into. We're going to configure what you need updated. So let's just open this in. You can open it using Nano. If you don't use Vim, just change Vim to Nano. If you're on Debian, make sure that you do sudo apt install Vim, because maybe it doesn't come with Vim, it comes with VI, but you want to use Vim. Best sudo VI. If you don't know how to use Vim, I do have a tutorial for that. Let's search on another window. You can just search for Vim. Just search for Vim on my website. You should find it. There's a video and you can follow the video while you read all this. Okay. So let's go back. This file is going to tell the system which packages to update or which specific items to update or what to do after updates. So unattended update, you can see it's going to update the distro. It's going to update security. If there's any security related items, it will update that. These are just comments. And then it will also update apps security. Those are for specific apps. And then you'll also update distro apps. If there's any kind of security that needs to be updated for specific packages, it will be done. And then of course you need to enable this. This is the one that will update your packages. So if you have any packages update installed on your Ubuntu, then enable this and it is going to automatically update those as well. And then this, you can ignore this too, unless you have specific packages that you want updated based on this, then you can check that out. If you don't know what this means, just Google them. By this, make sure you enable that, remove the comments. And then something else that is important, maybe you're running a certain PHP version and you don't want PHP to be updated. You can exclude certain packages. So inside of Vim, if you want to edit anything, you just press I. You're now in insert mode in Vim. You don't want to update certain packages. Maybe you don't want to update MariaDB. add the quotation marks, add the double quotes for your packages. So maybe the next one you don't want to be updated. PHP. And then also you don't want a package that starts with ng, maybe something like that. Even PHP, maybe you want a package, you don't want to update any PHP packages, so maybe start with that, PHP and something like that. And then also you can also look at that, use to explicitly define the end of a package name. Without the that, libc would match all of them. So you use this to explicitly define the end of a package name. So if the package name is MariahDB, maybe you can add the $, add the $, to explicitly mark its end. That way it won't match anything else, maybe MariahDB sub packages, other packages that start with MariahDB. So that's something that you can do here. You can blacklist certain packages so that they don't get updated. Or maybe you don't want packages that start with the Linux also to not be updated. You can change that. Of course, just like with everything else on this, make sure that you end it with a colon, with a semicolon. So ensure you end everything with a semicolon. Okay, let's scroll down and see what else is here. Unattended upgrade, dev release, auto. Now, if you want to automatically update the Ubuntu development release, of course, that's something that you should probably put at false on a production server. Put that at false. Let's see what else is here. Okay, now there are certain things here. If you want to receive emails, unattended upgrade mail, you can receive emails. So that one you've looked at, unattended autofix interrupt, forget that, install updates, unattended upgrade install on shutdown, false. So you can read that to see the options that you have. You can send email, so unattended upgrade mail, and then the email address. Let me just copy that from here. I know I must have an email address sample there. So unattended mail, you put the mail inside of the quotation marks there. So of course, first of all, you'd need to uncomment it, and then you put your mail there. So make sure this is a working mail, and your server needs to have a way for sending mail. So you need to have maybe Dovecot or Exim installed so that your server can send mail. You can use any address email there as long as your server can send mail. Then you can get the mail report here. If you want only to receive mail when there is an error or when there's an update, you can use only on error or only on change, or you can use always. Okay, so if anything happens, you'll receive the updates. That is with always. And then unattended upgrade, remove unused kernel packages there. So if you want to remove the packages that are outdated, the kernel versions that are updated, you can do that. You can set that to true, just uncomment it. The one that I'm looking for is automatically reboot, this one. So you can also set this on. If you want to reboot your server after these automatic updates, you can set that to false or true. The package that we installed is a package that will help us with this. So if you want to restart your server after the update, you can do that. Apt install update notifier. Yeah, I hope you installed that. If you don't install this, the reboot will not happen. So let's come back here, and I'm just going to do Control X. Control X. Oh, not Control X. We are not in Nano. We are in Vim. And then I'll press escape and then I'll do Shift ZZ to save on Vim. There. And let's just check. So if we receive a feedback, then it means that our automatic updates for Ubuntu are turned on. There you go. So unattended upgrade, there, it will check it every day. If you want it for every 7 days, you can change that to 7. So that's pretty much how to enable automatic updates for Ubuntu 22.04. You can follow this to enable automatic updates for Debian 11 as well. Install. Now, if you want to use a control panel like Hestia, you can do that. Once you do all these steps, you can install your control panel. Just come here and go to the script generation page and then install it using that script. All right, so that's pretty much it for this Ubuntu 22.04 initial server setup. In this full video, I used Vultr. If you want to use a different VPS, you can do so. If you want to get $100 credit from Vultr or from Linode, the buttons are up here. That's pretty much it for this Ubuntu initial server setup. Make sure you watch all the sections and you follow along carefully. And if you do have any questions, just ask me and I will assist. We have set up our Ubuntu 22.04 server. In this video, let's see how we can install HestiaCP on Ubuntu 22.04. If you're going to run your website, then make sure you do this. You follow all these processes because these are very important in securing your server. As soon as you get your server, make sure you follow the Ubuntu 22.04 initial server post, and I will leave this link in the description. Down here, I want to go to here. I will click here on script generation. I want to generate the HestiaCP script. While that is happening, I want to restart my server. Sudo reboot, or you can also restart your server from this side. If you go into your instances, so this is on Vultr, you can restart your server. Server restart. I will restart it from this end. Okay, so it has restarted. But first of all, let me go and generate our script. So let's generate our installation script. And if you have a small server, 2 GB and below, I would suggest that you go with Nginx instead of Apache. So I will not install Apache. I will install PHP FPM, and I can install multiple PHP versions because I don't know what I will be running. And for FTP, I will install Pro FTP. Named, yeah, this is for DNS, MySQL. I don't want to install Postgres, so I'll leave that out. Exim, I will definitely leave Exim installed. Exim, of course, you need both Exim and Dovecot because this is for IMAP. This is the one that works with the mail clients, and this is the one that delivers the mail transfer protocol. This is the one that will transfer the mail. So you need both of them. This, I will not install that. Clamav, I will install that. Spam Assassin, I'll leave that. IP tables, of course. Fail to burn, definitely you need this. And then Quota, no, I don't need that. I'm just going to leave it out. You can activate the HestiaCP API. I will not activate it. Force, I want to force the installation. If there's any error, force the installation. Interactive, definitely ask me what I need. And then port, make sure you're using a Cloudflare port. So I'm going to choose 2053. Just go online and search for Cloudflare ports. And I will use port 2053. This way I will be able to use Cloudflare. There's a list of ports that is accepted on Cloudflare, is accepted through the Cloudflare network. Go online and look for them. Hostname, of course. When we were setting up the server, we did set up a hostname. I will use a different website here. I will not use bizanosa.com. Let me use bizanosa.club. And I will change the hostname again to match that. and I will use that as my host name. And email, admin email, set up your admin email there. I can just use Bizanosa at Gmail. What else? Password, set up a password for your server. If you don't, you may need to reset the password, and you can reset it like this on Ubuntu or Debian. Password, let me just write a password here. And let me save it somewhere. Language, English with debs, not really. And then after that, I'm just going to click on proceed. I will copy that to run onto my server. So I need to log into the server. I know I'm definitely logged out because I restarted the server. So first I will log into the server. You can see I'm logging in via the SSH key that we set up for our server. Control L to clear the screen. And then I will download the package for installing HestiaCP. And then after we download that, let's copy this, the configurations that we want. So anyway, when I click on it, it copies. Okay. So let me come back. I will paste the script in there, press enter, enter my sudo password. And then this might take a while. So let's just be patient and wait. It's going to install Nginx, multiple PHP environments. It's going to install different PHP versions. It's going to install the DNS server, Exim for mail server, and then Dovecot. This is for mail clients, and then MariaDB, Pro FTP for the FTP server, and then it's going to install IP tables plus fail to burn. If that's what you want, you can enter Y, enter, and let it install what it needs. So just give it some time. I will come back in case it asks me to do anything. I will come back and resume recording. All right, the installation is complete. If we scroll up, you're going to see it has installed different versions of PHP here. Okay, now the installation is complete. Just press any key to continue. And if you scroll up, you will find your admin details. Make sure that you copy this. So by default, the username will be admin, but the password will be what you set. Or if you forgot to set a password, you can easily set up a password as I've shown you here. Log into SSH and you want to set a password for admin. You'll set your password there. Copy that, copy, and then I will save it somewhere. I will save it inside here, paste. And then I can come back and I can just press enter. And when you press enter, it's going to reboot your server. So let's give it time to reboot. And once it reboots, we are going to log into HestiaCP just to see what the panel looks like. So I can log into my server once again. But before I do that, just consider donating to this project. It's a good project. HestiaCP is a lightweight control panel that you can use to host your website for free, for absolutely free. So just go to this link and donate anything that you can to support the project. We want the project to succeed as much as possible. I'm going to do Control L to clear the screen. So I'm logging in with an SSH key. And I also changed the port. All these are in the Ubuntu 22.04 initial server setup post, which I've linked to. Okay, so I've logged into the server and you can see my memory usage has gone up because I've installed Hestia. I don't know what's eating up my memory. Let me have a look. Control L, and then I'll just do top. Okay, I'll do sudo top. So just press Q to get out of that, and then I can do sudo top. When you do sudo top, it brings you all the processes. And okay, that was just when it was starting up. That's why the memory usage was high. But you can see nothing is really taking much of my memory. Yeah, one thing that usually takes a lot of memory is MySQL. MySQL databases, they usually take a lot of memory. Nginx, not so much. If you had Apache, you would have seen Apache takes a lot of memory as well. That's why I'm telling you, if your VPS is 2 GB and below, just use Nginx and PHP FPM. So I'll press Q to get out of this, and then I'll just clear the screen with Control L. Now let's go and log into our panel. So I will copy the IP plus the port. So use the port that you chose. If you choose a different port, use that port there. So I'll copy that. So it tells you that there's a warning, potential risk ahead, and that is because you cannot add DNS records for the IP, so that you can make this a public SSL certificate. But what you can do is you can just click on advanced and then click on accept risk and continue. Username is admin, next, and then I will take the password from here, copy, paste, login. So there is your control panel. Just a quick overview. I just want to do a quick overview. We'll do more things, but for now I will just come in here and show you what you have. This is where your websites will be. If you want to create a new website, you'll just come in here under web and click on add web, but you need to create a new account before you can add a website. Make sure that you go into users and then you add a new user, and the new user should be the user that you'll be using to create the websites. Don't use the admin user to create your websites. For security sake, use a different user. The DNS records will be there. I'll show you how you can set up DNS, and that's the next video that I think I should do, how to set up DNS. But before I do that, I'm going to do smaller videos just to make sure that I cover certain things about this control panel. Now DNS, we'll look at that. Mail, you can set up cron jobs, your backups will be in there. And then you can come in here. If you're logged in as admin, you can come in here under settings, and here you'll find different things that you can do. You can look at all the services that are running. If any service is not running, you can just click on it and you can restart it. And if you want to edit any configuration files, you can do so by going there, or you can come here. I think it's under configure. You can come in here and you can configure different things for your web server, for your database. You want to set up the configuration files. You can choose to disable certain PHP versions. For me, I don't want to use any of this, so I'm going to disable them. But just in case you have a certain application that requires a specific PHP version, you can come in here and enable it. I'm going to save. And this usually takes a while, so just give it time to deactivate all the PHP versions there. There we go, after a while. So just wait a while and all the changes will be made. It will deactivate all these PHP versions. So if you want to set up anything here under updates, you can enable email notifications when an update is done on your server. Basic options, just come in here, change the time zone to match where you are. I'm in Nairobi city. I will choose Nairobi there. And appearance, you can change from dark theme, whichever you want to change there. You can change your entire control panel. Okay, so I prefer the dark theme, so I'm going to come back and I will use the dark theme. Save. You can also do this for users. If different users want different themes, they can do that. When they go to their user profile, they can change the theme there as well. Databases, you get the idea. If you want to change anything here, you can change that. Let's go to PHP. We're back to PHP. I know you'll need to change certain things. If you need to edit PHP, you'll just come in here, click, let me open in a new tab. And then you can see that you can change various PHP configuration settings. You can change that there, or you can go to the advanced option and you can change that for your PHP. So you can see this is going to change in these files. So you can see this is going to change in these files. So you can change the different things that you want to change. For your PHP, you can increase the memory limit there. Let's go back. Let's come back here. What else? Nginx. Maybe you want to edit certain things about Nginx. You can increase the send out time. You can increase the timeout time. All that you can change here for Nginx. If you want to make any other settings, you want to add any configurations, you can add those inside here. And then you save, and then you'll save, and then it will restart Nginx. What else? Let's go back. Let's come back here, and you can look at the task monitor. The task monitor will just show you the tasks that are currently running and how much load they are consuming. So you can see right now I don't really have much because my server is brand new. But you can always come back here after a while to see how your server is doing. If there are any spikes, you can investigate on your server to see what's happening. You can also view the advanced details of this just to look at the processes that are running. This is what we looked at in the dashboard. You can use sudo top. Back, you can look at the firewall. So when you come to settings, you can change the various firewall settings here. And as I was saying, if you listen to me in the Ubuntu server setup, I told you that these control panels will set up your firewall for you because they need certain tasks to be running. So that's what's happening here. They've added the ports that they need, including my port for HestiaCP. So one thing that you should always do if you're paranoid, you should always log into your server and disable the SSH port and FTP ports as well. If you need to log in, you can just come in and enable it again. So to suspend it, you can just click there and that will suspend FTP. So people won't be able to access your server via FTP. You can also do the same for SSH. So this means that if you want to access your server, you're going to have to come into your HestiaCP and then enable the ports that you've disabled. If you disable anything, yeah, of course, don't disable this, because for you to disable this, you have to log into SSH to enable it. You can add any rules here. If you want to add a rule, maybe you want to allow a new port, you can allow a new port. Maybe you want to allow port 3000 up to port 3400. And then the IP list, you can use, I should have copied it from the other end, but you can use 00 if you want to allow it. So you can block or allow. Let's say we want to allow these ports. Optional. So I know it's probably not going to save because I don't have that. Yeah. IP address cannot be blank. So let's use for all traffic. So we'll save that. And if we go back, we'll see that did we block or allow? Okay, we allowed. Yeah, we've allowed this port. If you want to suspend it, you don't need it. You can delete it, or you can suspend it, or you can delete it. I will delete this. So that's pretty much it there. You can manage banned IPs. If any IPs have been banned, you can come in here and disable the banned IPs, or you can add an IP to your ban list and ban the IP. So you can ban an IP from accessing your SSH or whichever service you don't want to be accessed. So let's go back. So what else? Backups. I think I'm going to do a video of how to bring in your backup, how to import your backup into HestiaCP. I will do that video later on. So what else is here that is important? Okay, the file manager. I know people want to see the file manager. So I will click on the file manager. And with the file manager, you can upload and download different files into and out of your server, out of the different websites. So right now we don't have many websites, but if you go under web, this is where your websites will be in HestiaCP. And if you go there, we can upload different files, and the files for your website will be inside of public HTML. So if you come here, you can select everything and then zip them up. Maybe you're backing up your server and you can create that, and maybe you want to download that. You can come in here and download the backup for your website. That's how to use the file manager. You can even edit files in here. You can edit files. You can change different things. You can change the code for your files. I will click there to save. And if you want to edit anything, just click on it, edit it, and then save it. If you need to create a file inside here, you can click on plus and then add a file, or you can add a folder. So maybe you'll add a folder, and then inside of this folder, you can create your files. Create. And if you need to upload anything inside here, you can click on add file. You can upload that in there, or you can just drag in a file. Even if you drag in a file, it should be saved. I can just upload that for the sake of it. And you can see it has been added. So you can just drag in files. You can go back home. And if you want to go back to your control panel, all you have to do is just click here. And you can also look at the root of your file. If you want to look at the tree for your files, you can click here to look at the tree for your file, and you can go into any file that you want to go to. Right? So that is the file manager for HestiaCP. I'm just going to exit back into the control panel. We've said you can create a new user. Let's go here and see the settings that we have for the user. So you can edit your user settings here. You can change your email, you can change your password. And if you don't want to allow user to log into the control panel, you can do that. You can create new users who can add websites. Maybe you're hosting for your friends, family, or even hosting for people that pay. You can come in here and disable them from logging into the control panel. And then this is very important. As soon as you get you log into your server, make sure you enable two-factor authentication. So to enable this, just check that, how to enable. We are going to see in the next video how to do some of these things. So I'm just going to show you in the next video how to enable two-factor authentication. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Before I end, you can also change the appearance. You want a different view for your user, then you can change that there. So you can see HestiaCP is a very easy to use, lightweight control panel. And as I said, feel free to donate to this panel because it is a very reliable panel. You can use it to host your websites on production, not just testing websites, but production websites you can host using HestiaCP. So I think this is enough to get you excited about using Hestia control panel. Very easy to use. In the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new user, and then we're going to see how to create two-factor authentication for the new user. This has been a video for how to install HestiaCP and a brief overview of the HestiaCP control panel. See you in the next one. The next thing, let us see how to create a new user. And then for the new user, we are going to set up two-factor authentication. So I'll just go back here into users. Make sure you're logged in as the admin user, and you can click there to add user admin 2 because I want it to be easy to remember. I'll just give it a name of sys admin. And then the email. Of course, give it a password. Oh, I can't generate a password, so let me just use the same password I used for admin. So just know by the time you're watching this video, I will have deleted this server. So I will put all that there. The password must have at least, so the password is weak. Okay. The password is weak. So what we can do, we can make this capital, and I'll just come back and save it. Do not allow a user. Of course, you want the user to log in. And then once we save it, we're going to see how we can set up two-factor authentication. can email the login credentials. If you're creating this for someone else, then you can email the credentials to them so that they can have their credentials like passwords to log into the server. And then I will make this an administrator, not a user. If you're creating an account for someone so that they can just add a website, make sure you give them the user role. In my case, I'll make this an administrator. And then I'm going to save. So we've created the user. I can log in as the admin. Since I'm root, I can just come in here as a user. And if I go to admin, if I just click on admin or I click on that, I can log in as admin. Just by clicking on that, I can log in as admin. And I can go to admin 2. I can log in as admin 2, and then I can set up two-factor authentication for admin 2. So just click there on to set up two-factor authentication for admin 2. Just click there, or any user, just click there on enable two-factor authentication, and then click save. And then make sure you already have the Authenticator app installed on your phone. So for me, I do. I'm just going to go to Google Authenticator app, and then I'm going to scan. I'm going to click on the plus button and scan. So I'm going to scan this. And as soon as I scan it, it will be added to my Google Authenticator login list. As soon as I do that, I don't really have to do anything else. I can just click save, and Google Authentication, two-factor authentication will now be set up. And make sure you save your account recovery so that if you lose your phone, you can use this to log in. Make sure you copy this and you save it somewhere. Let's look at advanced options for your user. Setting up no login. This way they will not log into SSH. But if you want them to log in, you can just give them bash and they will be able to log in. PHP version, the default version you want for them, you can put that. So when they create a website, the PHP version will always default to that. And then of course you can add the DNS. I'm going to show you how to set up DNS on HestiaCP. I haven't done any DNS up to this point with this website. This is a real website. This is a real domain, but I haven't added any DNS settings for anything. So nothing will be accessible, but I'm going to show you how you can set up DNS for HestiaCP, and I'm going to show you two methods. The first method, I'm going to show you how you can use your own domain if you want to use your own domain. The second method, I'm going to show you how to use Cloudflare, which is the easier route. So I should probably start with that. If you're not going to host websites for people, then you should just use Cloudflare to handle your DNS and don't bother with using your own website as your DNS records for your DNS records. And I'll show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to do both in one video. So the video might be long, but you'll just bear with me. That's the next thing we're going to do. So if you do have any questions, feel very free to let me know. Let's see how to set up DNS for HestiaCP. I'm going to show you two methods for setting up Hestia DNS. The first one, we're going to see how we can use Cloudflare to set up DNS on your HestiaCP panel. And then the second one, we're going to see how you can use your own domain as your DNS provider. So we'll have our name servers will be something like ns1.bizanosa.club or ns2.bizanosa.club. But first of all, let's see how we can do it using Cloudflare. So you'll come here under Cloudflare. Now, if you want to add a website, I've already added this, and this is the one we want to use. So if you want to add a website, just come in here, click add a website. I'll add example.com. Cannot be added, but what if we add example? Ooh, that should be added. So it's not a registered domain. Let's find one that is registered. Now I can just use, I know this one is registered, so I'm just going to click there. Unfortunately, this I think is already added here. Let's find another one. Let's try to add this, even though it's already added on Cloudflare. You'll choose a plan. We are going to go with the free plan. Click there on get started with the free plan. It's going to scan your DNS and it will give you the name servers to add. So I don't want to go any further with this because this website is working. I can just go, let me just click to go back. And I can click on it again I will see that I have this. So when you click continue, you'll get the Cloudflare name servers. So you'll find the name servers that you're currently using, and then you can replace them with the name servers that you've been given. So copy those name servers and put them on your domain provider. In this case, if you're on Namecheap, just go to Namecheap domain list, then go to change the name servers, and you can use a custom DNS like I'm doing here. And I will go back to the other website. Let me delete this website here, remove site from Cloudflare. I will go back to this. This is already connected to Cloudflare. Now that it's already connected, all you have to do is you have to come here under DNS. This is all you have to do to get your website to be working with your HestiaCP and your control panel. All you have to do is come in here under DNS, and then you add the A record, CNAME record. If you want to make your work even easier, the one thing that we did in the beginning was we installed the DNS provider for HestiaCP, the named service, which is the DNS provider for HestiaCP. That is the application that would handle DNS. So what you'll need to do is come in here and add the website. And when you add it, let's say we add it and you take that IP address, of course, create a DNS zone. Make sure you check this, create DNS zone. And what this will do is that it's going to generate the records that you need. And those records, just copy them and put them on Cloudflare, and your website will be up and running. So like in this case, let me just continue. So you can enable mail for this server. In my case, I won't really enable mail. I will save. I can enable mail later on. This is not the end. I can come back later on and enable mail. Right now, the website is on HestiaCP, but if we go to it, we won't be able to access it because we've not added the DNS records for this. If I want to set up the DNS records, I'll just come in here under DNS, and I will go to Bizanosa Club, and you can see all the DNS records have been generated here for me. So all I have to do is to just copy this over onto Cloudflare. So there's no way to import. Is there a way to import? No, there's no way to import this, but let's just click there to edit. You can edit the different records. Let's come back. Now, the most important ones that you want to start with to make sure that you can issue out SSL is the A record for the main domain and the A record for www. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into Cloudflare, just copy your IP address, copy, and then come back into Cloudflare, and then we will add an A record, add A record. So this already has an A record. I don't know where this goes to. I don't think this one really exists. This must be another tutorial I did. So I'm just going to paste in the other IP address there and save. And what's going to happen is that Cloudflare is going to propagate this, and after a while, you're going to find that your server now points to your HestiaCP server. So this might take a while. Sometimes it might take 10 minutes. Sometimes it might even take 24 hours. It depends on where you are. And the good thing with Cloudflare is that Cloudflare is pretty fast. So the propagation is going to happen fast. You can see in my case, I used a CNAME, but you can also use an A record for www. So if you want to set up SSL, you will have to have www and the main domain set up. So you don't have to use A record for www. Like in my case here, you can see it is a CNAME, but the point is that if anyone goes to www, there will be something there to find because it says that it is a CNAME of this, which is also an alias of that. So a CNAME is just an alias. So you can use www with an A record, just create another A record and then add www and then add the IP address, or you can just do it like this, like I did with a CNAME. It doesn't really matter. And then copy all these other records because they are important. Like that will be for mail, and then SMTP, all this, just copy them one at a time. You can go the other side and then you can add all this. You can see all these are A records. So if you come in here and you click on add a record, you can see you can add all the different records. Let's choose one as an example. Let's say we want to add txt. No, let's add one of these A records, and I'll just choose FTP. So if I come here and I choose FTP, this is a record, right? So this is where you put your subdomain, FTP or whatever. This is www.mail. So you can put all this. These are all subdomains, okay? So all these subdomains, FTP, and then you'll add your IP address there. I will add that. Let's do another example. Mail. Let's just create one for mail. This one is important. This one you must have. So you're going to add record, and then you're going to, it's still an A record. So we're just going to add mail, and then paste, and then save. So if you come here, add record, we don't have any MX. Oh yeah, we do have an MX here. And the MX goes to mail.bizanosa.com. Make sure you take the dot at the end. That's also important. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to create an MX record. MX. And the MX record is just the domain name. So @ simply means the domain name. So it's going to replace the @ with your domain name. And the mail server, we'll just add in that as our mail server. And what is the TTT? The time to life on this side is 14,400. The time to life on the other end is 1400. How many? Is that 1 hour? I mean TTL here. Priority, we'll just leave that at 10. I think it's 10, right? Priority, you can just leave it at default. So time to life, if you come here, you can even put an hour, okay? But an hour is too short. So let's just put it at 1 day. Or if you don't know what to do, just leave it at auto and Cloudflare will choose for you. Even that one, the priority was the priority on this end. Priority has been put to 0. So you can leave it at 0 and then just save. So that's pretty much it for how to use Cloudflare to handle your DNS. So that's the first part. Now, once you've added these records, just sit back and wait. And when you go to your domain, and when you visit your domain, at some point, you're going to see that it propagates to your server. And that's what you want. So that's just how to use Cloudflare. So right now it's not ready. Give it time to propagate. And once it propagates, when people go to bizanosa.club, they're going to see your HestiaCP. If you already have a website, you can add a website, but just wait for everything to propagate before you start adding your website. But if you want to move your website without going offline, this is the right time to add your website. Right now, when it's propagating, just bring in your website files, attach it to the database, make sure that everything is working well. And when the website propagates, finally, your website is going to be shown there. And you just have to wait for it to propagate. The one way that I can test whether it has propagated is I can come in here, back to web, and I can try to issue SSL. So if I click on it, it will give me the option to edit it, and I can try to enable SSL, and I will use Let's Encrypt SSL. So if Let's Encrypt works perfectly, it means that my website has propagated, even though I may not be able to see it if I go to my browser. So let's save and see if it's going to issue SSL successfully. So you can see this error, Let's Encrypt validation status 400. This means that your DNS records have not propagated. So just give it time, okay? You give it time to propagate. Most importantly, you must have the main domain with an A record, and www must be pointing somewhere for SSL to be issued using Let's Encrypt. Add all the other records that you need to add to make sure that your website is working with Cloudflare. Your HestiaCP is working with Cloudflare. Now the next one is how to set up your own DNS records. The first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to actually create the parent records. So what you need to do is go to your domain provider. In this case, I'm using Namecheap. I've never used Namecheap for this. I do have a video playlist that has some older videos that I did with a different provider. Go to those videos. I'll put the link in the description. You can watch how to do the same thing on a different domain name provider. So your domain name provider will have a place whereby you can create child name servers, personal name servers, private name servers. These are just the same things. On Namecheap, at least you'll come here under advanced DNS. Now, if you scroll down, you can see that mine is not showing me any other thing. If you're using MailChimp, if you're using Namecheap, yours may be showing you something here, and that's because you're using a different name server setting under domain. My name servers are pointing to Cloudflare, so I will not get the DNS zone here. But something is here. We can register a name server, and this is what we want. So I'm just going to click there on Add Name Server. You can choose a name server to add. Let's just add NS1, and we need our IP address. I will copy my IP address, and then I will come back into Namecheap, and I will paste that in there. And then I will click Done. And that's the first one. Name server successfully added. Let's add another one. One thing that you probably should do is, if you're going to host for other people, you need to add another IP to your server so that you can have the different name servers pointing to different IPs. So I'm going to add there NS2. I will paste, and then I will click Done. So if I click there on search, let me choose custom, and let's go back to standard name servers, and I'm going to click there to add my IP address. I will add the IP address again. I don't know why I did not register. Fail to update. Please make sure all the fields are filled in correctly. So I'll just delete these two once again, and I've deleted both of them, and I will try the process again. Let's just start. Add name server. I will choose NS1, and then I will add the IP address. Done. Name server added successfully. Let's just confirm if it's been added. I will click there on search, and then I will add the second name server, NS2. I will use the same IP. Maybe the problem is using the same IP. Let's see. And then I will search standard. Okay, so you can see they've been added. This is what you want. Now the next step is for you to go to your domain provider. And on your domain provider, in this case, I'm using Namecheap. I'm just going to come here under domains, and you need to change your name servers to point to the name servers that you've created. So I'm going to paste the NS1 as my custom domain. Make sure you choose custom domain. And then I'm going to add the second name server, and I will save this. So we need to come here under DNS, and we need to add two records here. I need to add an A record. I don't know that it's added. Let's just confirm before I do it. I don't see NS1 added. Oh yeah, we already have NS added here. So we don't need to do this again. It's already added here. ns1.bizanosa.club and ns2.bizanosa.club. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but you need to confirm the propagation for this. We need to come here, and let's just see if anywhere this is now propagating based on our name servers. So remember, right now Hestia is the one handling our DNS, not Cloudflare. If you want Cloudflare to handle your DNS, you'll come back here and then change your name servers to the ones for Cloudflare. So let's go to MX Toolbox. I want to see if my name servers have already propagated. Is it this one? No, it's not this one. DNS lookup. We need to do a DNS lookup. Paste bizanosa.club. Let's see who's handling our DNS right now. Okay. So right now it's still being handled via Cloudflare. So let's give it some time and we'll see what happens. Let's go into our server, and we're going to create two A records, one for NS1 and NS2. So I will come in here and I will go into DNS, and I will add, I want to go into this to edit this, and I need to add a record for NS1 and NS2, and I want to add A records for this. So do this on your HestiaCP panel. Record is NS1. Type A records IP. Let's choose our IP. Let's add our IP. Priority, we'll just leave this as they are. So I'm just going to save. That's for, okay, I must have added a space here. Remove the space, make sure there are no spaces, and then save. And then you add the second one, NS2. NS2, A record, IP, the same IP address. Make sure you remove the spaces if there are any. And then I'm going to save. So we have our records, A records for NS1, NS1, NS2. Let me take the link and see if there is any kind of propagation that has happened. Paste and go. Okay, that's good. The website is working. That means that there is one DNS record that's working. It could be Cloudflare or it could be HestiaCP, but let's confirm using MX Toolbox. So if I go to mxtoolbox.com, I'm going to go to not MX lookup, but I will go to DNS lookup. Let's just see if it's bringing back our IP address. And perfect. You can see it is bringing up our IP address. That is good. So now you can use your own domain as your name servers. Now it's bringing the constant company. The constant company is Vultr, and our server is being hosted on Vultr. So the IP belongs to Vultr. That's what you're being told here. And this is good because now we know that our DNS is being provided by HestiaCP, and that's what we wanted. Let's see if all these are working. Where's www? If you go to www and it's working, then it means that everything is working fine. And at this point, you can issue an SSL. Perfect. What this means is that now if you go to our domain, we can issue SSL. So we can go back to our domain and issue SSL, and it's going to be successful. So let's just go and edit. And I will click on enable SSL for this domain. I will use Let's Encrypt and I will save. So just give it time. SSL has been issued. Okay, perfect. Now if we go to the front end and we reload, in fact, it automatically redirects to SSL, and you can see who's issued our SSL. It's verified by Let's Encrypt. This is how you can handle your DNS using HestiaCP. I've shown you two ways. You can use Cloudflare or you can use your own domain. So there's a playlist that I have for handling DNS, and you can find that. I will add this video in that playlist as well. And that way you can see the different domain providers that I used. I used a different provider in the previous videos. You can see if that's the same as the current provider that you're using, or you can just follow what I've done. The basic thing that you need to understand is that name servers that you create on the domain provider, you'll find them called private name servers, personal name servers, or child name servers. Those are the important things. So you'll create the NS1, then you add the IP address, or you can even make it NS10, NS12, and add your IP address for them, and then you go back to your Hestia control panel and you add NS1 with an A record with your IP address, and then NS2 with an A record with your IP address, and that's going to fix everything for you. So before I end the video, let's just search for check name servers. So let's look at that. NS lookup. Do these guys have NS lookup? I don't see it here. Enter domain, paste, and then show NS records. We want to see the NS records that are being used, and the result for bizanosa.com is NS is using bizanosa.com. is using NS1 and NS2. You've confirmed it. You don't have to be skeptical. You've confirmed NS lookup using the NS lookup that you're currently using your own personal name servers. So I hope this video will help you to achieve whichever DNS goal you have in mind. If you want to use your own server for DNS, you can do that. If you want to use Cloudflare, you've seen how you can do that as well. You have seen how you can set up DNS on HestiaCP, and we used Cloudflare, and you saw how you can do it with your domain name. We're going to stick with the domain name for now because that is a setup that we have. If you check the DNS, you'll see that our DNS are currently our domain name. So if you followed all the steps, then yours is also working perfectly. The next thing, let's see how we can install WordPress on our website. We've already set up SSL as well. If you go to the front end, you can see we've set up SSL. Our website, it's Let's Encrypt ready. So we're going to install WordPress, and there is a way to install WordPress. If you come here under websites, if you go into your web, let's just go back. If you come here into the website where you want to install WordPress, you can click on Quick Install App, and this will install any of this. We want to install WordPress. Site name, WordPress sample. WordPress account username, I'll just call it WP admin, but don't use this. Use something that is more secure than that. WordPress account email, I will use. This email can be used to recover your password if you forget your login info. WordPress account password. Let's generate a password. I'll just copy it and put it here. Install directory. If you want to install WordPress in a directory, you can add a directory here. Okay, if you don't want it to be installed on public HTML on the root folder like it will be, then you can add a directory. And once you do that, there are certain things that you'll need to do. For instance, you'll need to go into your index HTML, into your index.php, and you need to add the directory for where you installed WordPress. I don't know that it's going to automatically do it for you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it at default. Language, of course, English. Database create, database name. You can create database. Okay, it will be created automatically, or you can use a specific database name. Then database password you can generate and create. And later on, I'll show you how you can access this database once you've created them. So let's just click on install to use the default settings. I hope there won't be any problems now that we've chosen the default settings. WordPress app was installed successfully. Really, that was very fast. Anyway, let's just go to the front end and see. And it has been installed indeed. I will log in with the username and password. Make sure you save them. To log into WordPress, just go to wp-admin. I will use the password that I copied, paste. Remember me, and then I will log in. So now that we are logged in, let's create a post. Add new. HestiaCP is the best. And then let's make this a heading. You can add a button. Link Hestia. I think that is the HestiaCP website. Is it hestia.com? HTTPS. Let us just confirm this. Best and Go. All right, that is a website. I didn't want to mess that up. So I'm just going to open in a new tab and let's publish our beautiful blog post. Publish. Let's go and view our post. Okay, so this is what I wanted. You can see our, what's this called? Our permalink is not permalink. We need pretty permalinks. So I will go back into the dashboard. I will come into settings. Where is it? Is it under reading settings? No, it's under permalinks. It's under permalinks. The permalink settings are under permalinks. I will choose post name and then I will save. I want pretty permalinks. So let's just refresh. We are going to get a 404. We are not getting a 404. We are being redirected. That is fantastic. This website is running on Nginx and PHP FPM. We are not using Apache. We are using Nginx and PHP FPM using HestiaCP. So you can see how easy this is. If you're a freelancer and you need to host multiple websites for your clients, if this is like a service you offer, I will build your website and host it for you. You can use HestiaCP to do that. You can see how easy it is to install a new website and you can just start designing the website for them. Let's say you want to add a second website, and the second website we're going to add, I'm not going to add a full domain, but the process of adding a website is just the same. I'm going to add a subdomain for this because I don't want to go into any of my domains and change the name servers. That is the only reason I'm going to use a subdomain. So I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to come back here and I will go into web and let's add another website. So to add a second website is as easy as click on add web domain. So the web domain I want to add is a subdomain. Let's add shop.bizanosa.club. If you're adding a second domain, you can add it like this and all the records will be added for you. So I will create DNS zone and I will save. And as soon as I do that, let's see if the website has been added since we are using our own. Okay. What did I click on? What did I click on? I'm supposed to, okay. Instead of taking me here, let's go back to web. I want to go to the front. I want to visit the public site. So let me click on that. Let's see if everything has been set up. You can see since we are using our own name servers, it has been set up. However, on Cloudflare, if you are using Cloudflare, you'd need to go back to Cloudflare and add the record for this. And to add the record for this is pretty easy. Let me just show you because I think I'm still logged into Cloudflare. So I'll just go into Cloudflare. Once you go into the website, go into DNS and we need to add all the records for this. Let's go into DNS and let's see the records that have been set up for shop.bizanosa.club. Since this has been set up here, some of these are the same as the one for the main domain, which is bizanosa.club. The only thing that is not the same is www. We need to add this, and then we also need to add the A record. We also need to add the A record for it. I'm going to come into Cloudflare. Let me copy the IP address. I need the IP address. Copy. So if you want the website to show up online, you're going to come in here under add record and you'll add an A record and the name will be the subdomain, which is shop. And then you'll add the IP address there and you'll save. And then most importantly, you need to add www as well. So you can add www as an A record or as a CNAME, but I'm going to add it as an A record this time round, and I'm going to add it as www.shop. www.shop, and then we're going to paste. And as soon as you paste, you're going to save. So these two, this and this, are for our subdomain. So if you are using Cloudflare right now, if somebody goes to shop and www, the website will show up because they're being directed correctly. Now you can add the other records. This MX records, you'd need to add MX, and then the TXT records as well. If it is different, no, I don't think it's different. Since we're using the IP, this will not be different. You need to add this as well. I think this is for SPF. and then dmarc, add these ones as well, these txt records. Now to add the txt records, you'll just copy the entirety, copy, and then you'll come back here and add a txt record, txt, and you add the value there. That is the value that you got from there. And then you need the record itself, copy. Now this is important for mail delivery. If your email is going into spam, make sure you see how to add dmarc for your domain, and then you can save. So since my domain, my HestiaCP is handling all the DNS records, I don't need to worry about any of that. As soon as I set up this website and I click on add DNS zone, all that will be dealt with by HestiaCP. So for me, the next thing that I want to do is install WordPress again, because this video is about installing multiple websites on your Hestia panel. So we already have that WordPress. Let's install WordPress here again. I'll just click there to edit, or you can click on the name. I'll click on quick install and I will choose WordPress. You can install any of these others. Generate the password for me, account email. Always add a working email, because this is what you'll use to get your login information if you forget it. Then install directory, just install it in the root directory. Everything else I will leave as default, and then I'm just going to click there on install. Oh, something I should have done is I should have enabled SSL, but it doesn't matter. We can do that next. WordPress has been installed. Let's go back just to confirm. We'll go to the front end to make sure that WordPress has been installed. And you can see our WordPress is not SSL active. So we're going to go back and we need to edit it. Let's edit it so that you can set up SSL. I'm just going to go into enable SSL for this domain, and we're going to use Let's Encrypt, and then I'm going to save. There we go. Now SSL is set up. Let's go back to the site and see if this will reflect in the front end. And we don't even need to do anything. It will automatically redirect it to the SSL version. Now the issue that we still have on this end is we need to make this pretty link friendly. So let's log into our front end to our back end. WP admin, login. Our two WordPress are running on HestiaCP. If you need to add another one, you know how to do it by now. Just click there, add a website, add the domain. If you have one IP on your server, choose the IP, create DNS zone. And since you're using your HestiaCP for the DNS, then you don't need to do much. All you need to do is this. You can also enable mail. If you're on Vultr, I'm doing this tutorial on Vultr. If you're on Vultr, then you'd need to contact Vultr and tell them to open up port 25, or you can go online and figure out how to change SMTP port from port 25 to a different port. Let's go back. The objective for this course, for this tutorial, for this video has been achieved. You wanted to see how to install multiple WordPress on your Hestia. You've seen how to do it. So let's continue with another thing. And in the next setup, I'm going to back up this, and then we can go back into our SSH to see how we can import this into our server. How we can import our backup into a server. Let's see how we can import HestiaCP backup into our new server. Maybe you have an old server, you're moving to a new server. Let's see how you can import your HestiaCP backup via SSH. I've already written the post, and you can just follow along with the post. If you go to Google, you can search for SSH. Hestia import SSH, HestiaCP import via SSH. And this is the post, bizanosa.com, HestiaCP restore backup via SSH. This is the post, and we're going to follow this post. So first of all, we need to go in and download the backup. So log into your HestiaCP, and for the user that you want the backup for, then go into that user. I'm just going to go into admin2. That is the user that you created. So you can see inside here we have two websites for this fella, and these websites are actually live. So if we go, we should be able to visit these websites. So you can see right now the websites are live, and you saw how to install these websites. So the next thing is we want to go into backup for this user and download our backup. You can see that you only have one backup, but if you want multiple backups for this user, maybe you want to store many backups, you can go back into the admin user, log in as the admin user for your server, and then here under admin, you'll see packages. The package that is being used by the other user is the default package. So I will edit this. And if I come down here under backups, I can increase the number of backups that will be stored for this user. Now let's say I want 4 backups. And I will just save. And now if I go back to users and I go into admin 2, you'll see that now this fella has 4 backups. So I'm just going to click there on backups because I need to download the backup. You can create a backup if you want to. You can also add backup exclusions. Maybe you don't want certain files to be added into your backups. So if you click there to edit the exclusion, you can add a domain. Maybe there's a domain you don't want to backup. There are mail domains you don't want to backup, databases, type the full database name. All right. You can do that there. But let's go back here into backup and let's download this. You can download it by coming here. You can restore the backup right there, but we don't want to restore it from there. We want to see how we can restore it via SSH. So the first thing, I'm going to download the backup. So the download is complete and I'm on Windows. You can follow along whether you're on Windows, Mac or Linux. It's going to work for you regardless of the platform that you're using. So I'm going to open up my home directory because I want to move this into my home directory. And here, let me see which directory I can put it in. Let me put it here. Yeah, that's empty. So I'll just put it inside there, my backup file. So if you're on Windows, download Git and then install Git and then open Git Bash, because that's what you're going to use. If you don't use Git Bash, you can use any other Linux environment for Windows, but I'm using Git Bash. We've downloaded the backup. Let me just delete it now. I don't need it. We're going to see it being imported via SSH. Just to confirm that we've actually imported things, we're going to delete everything that is inside here. I'll just delete them one at a time. Delete. With the selected, I can just delete them from here. Delete. So you can see we don't have anything. Let's see if there's anything that we have that we can remove. DNS. Let's go and remove all this DNS. We're going to re-import everything back for this user. Databases. Delete this as well. Anything else? All right, that's all we need to do for this user. Now you can see this user doesn't have anything. We're going to import everything back. So if you come back into this post, the first thing we've done is we've downloaded our backup. I'm going to use SCP to send this file into the backups folder. Now on Linux, on HestiaCP, they store their backups inside there. So if we go inside of that directory, we can do ls. Is it backups or backup? Okay, it's backup. If we go in here, you'll see that we do have a backup for admin and we do have a log files as well. So this is where Hestia stores their backup file. We need to change the permission for that directory just temporarily because we need to bring things into that directory, and we're going to change the permissions temporarily, and then after that we'll change them back. Right now the permissions are at 755, and that is not going to allow us to bring anything into that directory. So I'm going to change it to this temporarily. The permission has been changed. The next thing, we need to upload our file into that directory. Now you can do this any way that you like to. You can use SCP. I'm going to use SCP, but you can also use FTP if you want to use FTP, you can do the same. So probably if you're using FTP, you'll find that you may not be able to access that backup file via your FTP client. But what you can do is you can just move it into any directory and then just use the move command to move it from that directory into the backup directory where it needs to be. I hope you understand what I mean. Use FTP to move it anywhere onto your server and then move it into the backup directory. So when you're using the SCP command, you're going to use SCP, which is secure copy, to copy files from my computer into my server. This is going to be our destination. This is going to be our destination. We're going to move it from the local PC into the server. So this part, you'll do this on your local computer. So there are two options here. Example one, if you're not using SSH, I'm assuming that you followed my Ubuntu 22.04 initial server setup. If you did not, then this is a part for you. So you're going to SCP, and then this is the location for your file that you've just downloaded, and make sure it is. Now the reason I moved it into my home directory was because I wanted to use this. This will save me time on Windows. I don't have to do anything else. Once I do this, the system will know that this is my home directory. This is a link to my home directory. You'll see how I do that. And then you can SCP. That is a file you need to upload, and then you're uploading it to your server. Into which location? Into this location. Okay, so that's how you use SCP. Of course, I'm not going to use this because in my server I changed my port, and I also use an SSH key. Let me copy this because this is the one we're going to use to copy the file into our server. So I'm going to copy this and I want to edit it. So I'll just paste it in here. SCP port SSH. I need to change the location. It was inside of BAP, and also let me copy the name. So let me just show you. Control C. If I take this and I put it here. Now this is the same as that. That's why I decided to put it inside of my home directory. So I'm going to copy it here. This is the location for where the file is, and then I will copy the name and I will replace that there. That is the path. So this entire thing is the same as that. Is the same as that. So if you're on Windows, just move it to your home directory. Even on Linux, you can get to your home directory this way. So the new user, what's my IP? I need to get my IP. That's my IP address. The IP for my server. I will put that there. Paste. And I think that's all the details that I need to change. Just note that the -p is capital in this case. When you log in via SSH, usually it's a small p. So I will come here, paste, enter, yes, enter. Oh, oh my God, I've messed up. Okay, this is supposed to be done on my local computer. Let me open this here. I'm supposed to do this on my local machine. So I'm going to paste that there. Do it on your local computer, not on the server. Enter. And I will log into my server. Enter. So just give it time to copy. There we go. The file has been copied. Now, if we go back to our server, we can do ls and we're going to see the file is there. ls. I think I already did that command here. Yeah, you can see the file has been added for admin 2. So this is the one that we want to use to restore our backup. But before we even do anything, let's change the permission for this file for this folder back to 755. So we need to change it back to 755 so that this do not have the permissions to write, execute, and read. The next step is to restore the backup. We've changed the permissions. Now let's just restore the backup. Now to restore the backup, you're going to use this on Ubuntu. You have to add all this. Just add this. If you don't add this and you only use that, it's not going to work. So this restore user, and then that is the username that you're restoring for, and then this is a file that we are restoring. Now, if the username, you want a different username, maybe you want to use a different username here, change the username there, and also change the username on the file there. The first bit of it, make sure you do that if you want to change the username. Now, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy that only, and the rest we are going to get here. We are going to restore. We're going to restore admin2. Admin2. If you want a different name, give a different name there. If you want a new user to be created with a different name, give the different name. And then we are going to paste that file name and press enter. Just give it time to do what it's doing. It's going to restore everything that you need. So it's restoring the web files and then the DNS. There's no mail to restore. If you didn't want to back up any of this, you would have chosen them to be left out of the backup, and you saw how you can do that. Let me go back to my server. I'm going to refresh to see that all the backup is back. And as soon as I refresh, you'll see that our backup is back, our database is back, our DNS records are back, our web is back as well. So that is how you can move from one server to another if you're migrating your HestiaCP server. So just note that with SCP, you don't really have to download the backup. What you can actually do here, SCP, this, if you are already on your server, you just need to add the login details for the new server there. Those are the login details. In my case, I'm using an SSH key. And this is the source file. When you're already on your server, all you need to do is you just need to come in here, copy, and change the location for where the file is, which in this case, if it is currently on your current server, it will be there. So if you are migrating from one HestiaCP server to another, in the server where you have HestiaCP installed and you have the backup, just do that. And you won't have to download the backup. All right. So that's how you can migrate your HestiaCP. Just come here. All the steps are here for you to follow. Very few steps. That's it. Let us see how you can work with your database on HestiaCP, specifically how you can check your WordPress install database. If you installed WordPress using the one-click install on HestiaCP, you're going to see how you can access that database. So let's go into DB and just do a general overview of the HestiaCP database. So if you come here, you're going to find all the databases that you've created. And if you happen to forget a password for a database, all you have to do is you just have to click on it and then you set a new password. And if it is already connected to an application, make sure you take the new password and add that as a new configuration detail. That is that. If you forget the password, you can come in here and change. You can even change the username. You can see this is a username that Hestia automatically set up for me. So you can come there. That is a username. Make sure that when you're using your username with your applications, you copy them from there. Let's go back. If you create a new database, let's say you create a new database and we'll call this database sample. Our database name will be admin2 sample. That is the DB name. And then The type, we only have MySQL. If you had Postgres installed, you'd see Postgres as well. Username, we'll use sample again. We'll copy the password, copy the username I mean. So of course, label them so that you can know which is which. And the password, set up a password. So the password, just copy that and save it somewhere too. But just remember, if you forget the password, you can always come back and reset it. Just change it here and then save. So if this database was being created for someone who is being hosted on your server, or you want to remember these details, you can just enter your email address and they will be sent to you. All these credentials will be sent into your email address. Advanced option, let's see what we have here. You can change the host. Right now, we only have the local host on our machine. We don't have any database being hosted externally. And of course, character, you can choose character here, but UTF-8 is a standard, so just use that. I'm going to save. And the database has been created. So if we come back here, we are going to see our new database has been added there, admin sample. So if you want to access this on the phpMyAdmin, just click there, phpMyAdmin. And since we are accessing it on the IP, we're going to get this risk because we cannot add our IP onto any DNS records. We're going to accept this and we're going to log in. What you need to do is, if you want to access your phpMyAdmin, what you should do is you need to access it through a domain name. You shouldn't access it through an IP. So that can be easily fixed. You can just go back here. Let's go back into the admin user. And the admin user has our website's hostname. This is our website's hostname. And I don't know if this is already accessible. This should already be accessible since we are using HestiaCP. Since we are using HestiaCP as our domain DNS provider, this should be accessible. Okay, so you can see that this is not accessible, but that's probably because we haven't set up the DNS records for this. Let's see, do we have a DNS zone for this? I will go back and I'm just going to delete this website and I will set it up again. Copy. I will delete it. You can set it up as the admin user, but let's go and set it up with the other user that we've been using to set up the different websites on our Hestia panel. So I'm going to come here under web, add a web domain, paste, create DNS zone, and then we're going to save that. And now, before we even do that, let us go back into the domain itself. Just click there and we want to enable SSL and let's encrypt. Save. So everything is working seamlessly for me because I am using HestiaCP for my DNS records. As I showed you in one of the previous videos, I showed you how you can set up DNS. So once we do that, if we come here, we should be able to visit this website. Okay, so just give it time to propagate well and everything is going to work. So let's try to log in into that domain. Copy. We're going to log into this domain. We're going to log in through this domain. Accept risk and continue. Now, if we go into our databases for this user and we go into DB, let's try and open phpMyAdmin. And this time round, phpMyAdmin will work because it is not being accessed via an IP. So let's try and log into one of the databases. So if maybe you want to import a database for one of these, you just copy the credentials. That was the database name. I don't need that. I do need the user, admin user, username, paste, and then the password. There is a password. And then login. And once you do that, you can now import your database into your server. Okay. And if you want to access WordPress installs, databases for your WordPress install, you can go into your WordPress files and find out the login credentials. So let me come in here, and where is my file manager? I will go inside of web, and let's say we want to access the database for this domain. I will go into public HTML, and I will go looking for WP config. And while you're here, you might as well delete this. Delete the WP sample. Let's open this. Now, database settings, we need database name. We don't need that. Database user. We need the database user to log into our, maybe you want to import a database for that WordPress, or you want to change something on the DB. I will sign out of phpMyAdmin, and I will paste, and I will come back, and the database password, that is our password. Copy, paste, login. Now you see why it's important for you to make sure that your server is secure, because once somebody gets access, they can just log into the different platforms that you are hosting. So you can see, maybe you want to change the options. Site URL, you want to change any options, you can change that there. Blog name. So let's just change this for the sake, and we're going to see if it's affecting the front end. Let's go into web, visit the website, and you can see it is changing our front end. That's how you can work with your HestiaCP database. You can create the databases, you can get the credentials, and you can use phpMyAdmin to access your database. Make sure when you're accessing phpMyAdmin, you're not using your IP, because your IP is not allowed to access phpMyAdmin. You have to access it through a domain that is connected. So you can log into your HestiaCP using any domain that is connected to it. And when I was installing Hestia, I told you to change the port to something that is Cloudflare acceptable. That's why I'm using 2053. Now, the good thing with 2053 is that if you're hosting your website here, and maybe you're hosting for other people and they decide to use Cloudflare, they can still access your front. They can still access HestiaCP using port 2053. The default port of Hestia is not accepted by Cloudflare, so you need to change the port when you're installing it, like I did. So if I go to port 2053, I should be able to log in. There you go. You can log in any website that you're hosting here. You can log into your HestiaCP from the backend. So that's it for this tutorial. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to cover here. Everything else I believe you can manage to cover on your own and learn on your own. That's pretty much it. One thing I've not looked at is mail. In the next video, let's do that one last thing before we say goodbye to this Hestia tutorial. Before wrapping up this tutorial, let's talk briefly about mail. I did install the mail server, and everything that I need for mail to run on my server, I installed it. Now, the only issue you may experience is that most of these cloud providers will disable port 25. That is a SMTP port. That is a port that sends mail. You can receive mail, but you won't be able to send it if their port is blocked. If your port is blocked and you absolutely need to use port 25, just contact them and tell them that you want to use it because you're running a business and you need to send mail. Something like that, they would allow you to send mail. But if you're if you're being fishy and they think you're going to spam people, they may not allow you. What you can do is you can go online and find out how you can change the port, SMTP port. Find out how you can change it online and change it. Let's come here under mail, and you can see I don't have any mail yet. And the reason for that is because when I was setting up my websites, I did not enable mail. So let me use this as an example. And the good thing is that all these websites that I've set up are using the DNS provider from HestiaCP. So everything will work seamlessly. You don't even have to change any DNS settings. That is one of the advantages of using HestiaCP for your DNS. But if you're running a small website, just use Cloudflare. Now let's see if there's a place where I can add the mail options. Enable that, custom document. So I don't have mail there. I cannot add mail. Let's go here and see if we can add mail. So I can add a mail domain. Even though I didn't add it there, I can add a mail domain. A mail domain will add all the details you need to send mail. And for me, the mail domain that I want to add is this. So let me copy that. Add the domain, spam filter. What do you want to use as your mail client? So I think I only installed Roundcube. That's why it's the only one being shown there. Spam filter, reject spam, antivirus. Of course, you need to enable DKIM, SMTP relay. If you're going to send mail using third-party providers like AWS SES, or you're going to use any other third-party SMT provider, add the settings here. And when you add the settings, you'll just need to add your host, port, username, and password that you get from the other side. Let's say you're using Amazon SES, you're going to get the details from them. You can add all the details right there. We're not going to use an SMTP relay. We're going to use our own DNS, our own server here. I will just click on save. Once we add it, we are able to add the email addresses for this. If you want to add email addresses for that, let's just click on it. And when you click on it, you can add a mail account. You can also edit the mail domain. Let's see what you can edit. You can change all the things here. So you can add a catch-all email. This is one where when people spam you, they're just assuming that you have a certain email. Maybe you have info and you don't have info@yourdomain.com. You can create an account that catches all that kind of nonsense. And then let's go back. Let's click on this again, and we're just going to add a mail account. Mail account. Let's say we want to add Ricky at Bizanosa Club. So username. Then you need to add a password. Copy this somewhere because I don't want to forget it. Add advanced options. What options can we have? You can add a quota. Maybe you're hosting this for somebody else. If you're hosting for somebody else, you can add a quota and say you cannot use more than 100 MB. You can add domain aliases, and you can add forward to. If you want to forward this somewhere, you can add the forwarding to, and you can choose not to store forwarded mail. You want to limit spamming, you can say you cannot send more than 5 emails per hour. Email login credentials to whoever you are creating the account for. So when you're done with all these settings, just click on save. So if you go back to mail, let's just click there to go back. Right now we have Ricky at Bizanosa Club. So if you go into that email, you can edit anything that you need to edit there. Where is Roundcube? How do I access Roundcube? Let's try bizanosa.club/webmail. Let's see if this is going to take us to Roundcube. So this is not. How do I access Roundcube? Let us go back. Let's see how we can access. Okay, there we go. If you want to access webmail, you have to go back to the domain and you can access Roundcube from there. So add your domain. My domain is Ricky at this. copy, rekey at that, and then the password. We did save our password here. Copy, paste. I'm logged in. So let's say I want to send a mail to somebody. You click there on compose. I will send mail to, let's send to this Gmail so that we can see if it will go into spam. Let us send. It ended up in spam. The DNS settings for, have we added the DNS settings for DKIM? Mail domain is there. But just figure out how you can avoid going into the spam folder on HestiaCP or HestiaCP. So if you don't get any results through Hestia, look for HestiaCP. You're going to get some advice on how you can set up your server so that your mail doesn't end up in spam. I was able to send mail. So if you're not able to send mail, just go to your provider, tell them to open up the port, or you can change the port. And also, if you don't want to end up in spam, the easiest fix is just to use an SMTP provider. When you are setting up the mail domain, this domain, you saw that there was a place for you to add your SMTP relay. So if you want, you can go create an account. So look into using an SMTP relay if you don't want to end up in spam. In fact, this is a better thing to do because you don't have to worry about your mail server ever. Once you do that, your mail will end up into the folder, into the right folder. But you can also set up your mail such that it doesn't end up in the spam folder. Just increase your reputation as a sender, and also do not spam people. Try not to spam people. And most importantly, you need to figure out which settings in the DNS area here you need to set up. MX Toolbox. MX Toolbox, does it have a tool for just seeing if you'll end up in spam? Let us look at this. MX, this will just give us a lookup. We don't need the lookup. I think it's this email health. So we can DMARC found, DMARC policy not enabled. Okay, so you can enable that. DMARC, maybe this is the issue, but that should not be that big a deal. Let's look at email health and see if there's anything they can advise us to improve. So we can see that we are not in any blacklist. So maybe the issues, so Nameservers are on the same subnet. So yeah, this could be an issue. This could definitely be an issue. Reverse DNS does not contain the host name, right? That right there could be our problem. Let's go back into our server. And since I'm on Vultr, this is very easy to fix. Let me just look for, let me see what is my host name, and that's my host name. So I will copy my host name and I will take that into my Vultr dashboard, into the server where my HestiaCP is installed. And if I come here under settings, so let's just start from the beginning. So I will go inside of the server, and then I will come here under settings, and then where is it? There. So you can see this is not the same. This is different. So I need to come in here and I will change this. Paste, enter. This should take some time, but it won't take that long. Let me just Google reverse DNS lookup. RDNS lookup. Does MX Toolbox have one? Yeah, let me use the one for MX Toolbox. It won't take too long. No, I actually need to look for, I need to add my IP address. So check if your IP address is connected to the host name. Reverse lookup, and you can see, okay, now it is connected. Okay, now it's connected. Let's confirm if this will help solve our mail delivery problem. It still ended up in spam. You can see mail reverse does not match SMTP banner. Now this is the last thing we are doing, and then we are giving up. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, come to mailtester.com. Let us test our mail server. So I'm going to copy the email that they give me. I will go back into my round cube. I will compose an email and send it there. Paste. Test. And then we'll send. If I come back to mailtester.com, I can check the score for my mail server, and then we're going to see what they recommend and fix those. So you're not fully authenticated. This seems your message could be improved. That was a test message, so it doesn't matter. This is where the problem seems to be. Let's see what is the issue here. Let's look at this one, which seems to be bad. We checked a record. There's no a record. Okay. Oh yeah, this is a problem. Where is this coming from? We're using .club, and here we are seeing .com. Where is .com coming from? Let's go to our DNS records and see if we have anything here to do with .com. So if you go to the DNS records for bizanosa.club, we can see we have the PTR record is .club. There's no .com anywhere. So what this means is that maybe there's an issue on my host name. So let's come back, and I did a video about how you can change your host name. So make sure you watch that. So I'll just confirm my host name again, and you can see my host name is .club. That is good. Now the next thing, let's see in the hosts file if everything is okay in the hosts file. So in the hosts file, we'll go to, let's just do cat. So in the hosts file, okay, you can see this is where the problem seems to be. So I can just fix this quickly. I've just done cat right now. Yeah, this is the one I'm looking for. So let's do sudo. And I'm going to use nano to edit it. Enter. Now you can see I did not change the hostname, and I think even Hestia probably tried to change the hostname, but it couldn't because of this. And if you did watch the video about changing server host names, then you saw that in some cloud providers, they use a template. So let's go to the template and change our host name. So the template is there. We're just going to change it here. So basically the host name is like the DNS for your server. So this is the alias. Let me remove the alias. And I will replace the alias, and then this is your actual host name. Is there anything else here? I don't think there's anything else. So let me just close this and reboot the server. Control X, Y, enter, sudo reboot. Give it time to start up before we try to log in again. And all right, everything seems to have been changed. So let's go and do this test again. I don't know. Let's try MX Toolbox again. I don't know if MX Toolbox is going to have better results for us. Let's look at email health. Email health. So you can see that has fixed our issue. It was just the hosts the issue with the hosts on our server. So that's very important. If you want to fix the issue, then you just need to go to your host name, change the host name appropriately. And then once you change the host name, you go and you change that as well in the etc hosts file. That's important. So I hope that at least has given you a good day, making sure that you've solved that one issue that was a pain. Now let's go back to tester, and we're going to do one last test before we say goodbye to this HestiaCP tutorial. So I will come back here and I want to compose a new email. Compose, and I will use that email here. Let's test. Send. And then once we send, I will come here, check my score, and everything seems to be okay now. And the issue was just the host name. Make sure you change your host name. I did a video about that, and that's usually very important in mail. You're probably going to end up in spam if you don't change your host name. Now I will come back and send one to Gmail, and if it doesn't end up in the inbox folder of Gmail, just know that the issue is not your server. The issue is that you're probably a new domain, or your IP address is still not trusted. After a while, once you send mail, you will be trusted. Subject. Send. And after doing that, it has still gone into the spam folder, but this is probably just because my server is new and my IP is not trusted. So once you send a couple of emails and people receive them and open them, then you will be able to go into the inbox folder. It also depends. If your domain is not known, that could also be an issue, and it could also be an issue with my message. So my message doesn't seem to be anything of value. That's why it's probably been sent to spam. I hope this has helped you to learn how you can work with HestiaCP Mail. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know.